Chapter 999. The disaster of flowers had not yet fully begun, but they had already encountered an inexplicable crisis. The people of the Heaven's Craftsman faction must have used some means, Suyu thought to himself. Judging from the behavior and conduct of the Heaven's Craftsman faction students, Suyu found it hard to believe that the Heaven's Craftsman faction still had any lingering feelings for the blessed and heavenly lands. It was just that the blessed and heavenly lands had not yet declined to a certain extent, which made them wary. The reconciliation between the two sides was only superficial. Having experienced great storms, crises were now a common occurrence for Suyu. It was worth paying attention to, but not all. Swoosh! As he pondered, Suyu felt a sense of stability on his feet after a moment of dizziness. He opened his eyes and looked around, only to find himself in the middle of a forest. Strange trees with dark trunks and crimson leaves clustered together to form a boundless forest. Looking at the forest, Suyu was shocked to find that every tree had a book of different colors. Leaping lightly, Suyu flew to the nearest tree and reached out to grab a book. He thought it was a book hanging on the tree, but when he touched it, he found that the book was growing on the branch. Flipping open the book, lines of words appeared before his eyes. Huangze male, 23 years old, entered the path at 10, stepped into the fairy at 13, stepped into the Almighty at 16, and reached the later stage of the Almighty at 20. Cultivated the roar of the Thunder Lion. Apprenticed to the Heavenly Knife region. Died in 1730 AD of Jiuzhou. His life is as follows. The following introduction was magnificent. From Huangze's perspective, he described every little detail of his life. Even the hemorrhoids on his buttocks were recorded in detail. As he read, Suyu had a strange feeling in his heart, and he was not used to it. It felt like he was reading about himself. Suyu flipped left and right until the end. 1730 AD. Died in the hands of Mo Tianxian of the Red Blood Palace while fighting for the Starry Sky Genius. Mo Jidao's Book of Life. When he read the last paragraph, Suyu could not help but be surprised to find written records about Mo Tianxian here. It was 1730 AD, which was almost exactly 300 years ago. Mo Tianxian happened to be an influential figure of the generation 300 years ago. At that time, she had also participated in the glittering Jewel Wonderland and killed a disciple of the Heaven's Craftsman faction named Huangze. The reason was that they were fighting over a book of life called Mo Jidao. What is the Book of Life? Suyu asked the flower yard master, who was standing under the tree. She, who had also been teleported over, appeared to be extremely quiet. She waited under the tree and did not approach, as if she had some sort of resistance towards the tree. A tinge of melancholy appeared in the yard master's indifferent eyes. Isn't the Book of Life in your hand? Suyu put down the book subconsciously. The book fell to the ground and burned in the air. The pitch-black tree also started to burn. In an instant, the book and the tree turned into a cloud of pitch-black dust. The dust did not seem like ashes, but more like bone powder that had been eroded by the wind. Those who die in the book garden, after they die, their bodies will turn into dark, giant trees, and their souls will turn into a book. The book contains the life experiences of the deceased. Just now, you should have seen the life history of a deceased person. Hearing this, Suyu felt relieved. No wonder the narrative angle in the book was so strange. Suyu sighed silently as he gazed at the bone dust under his feet. A late-stage Almighty in his 20s was considered a rare talent in the world. Now that he was buried in the glittering Jewel Wonderland and his life was publicly displayed, how sad was that? Suyu rolled up his sleeves and shot out a mass of vital energy. He dug a small pit and buried the remaining bone dust in it. Seeing this, the yard master said, "Take care of yourself. Don't die here." Suyu nodded. He did not want his life to be hung on a tree for outsiders to watch, no matter how big or small. Yard master, are you familiar with the book garden? Can you give me some hints? Suyu looked over and asked. He had rescued the yard master, firstly out of sympathy, and secondly, he hoped to get the yard master's help, such as her familiarity with the glittering Jewel Wonderland. The book garden is not dangerous compared to the flower garden, the yard master said briefly. As long as you are wary of the disaster of books and the challengers, you will be safe. Suyu was speechless. She might as well not say anything at all. As if she knew what Suyu was thinking, the yardmaster said, I have never left the flower garden for half a step in my life. What I know is from the oral accounts of the challengers who have passed by. That's what they said. Suddenly, the yardmaster added, Oh, I remember now. They also said that the deeper you go into the book garden, the more dangerous it gets. Because the closer you are to the depths of the book garden, the stronger the trees were when they were alive. Suyu's eyes flickered as he swept his gaze over the densely packed forest. Not only had Suyu seen Huang Zhe's life history from his book of life, but he had also clearly seen his cultivation methods. The roar of the thunder lion that Huang Zhe had cultivated not only recorded the training method, but also the entire process of his training. Even the thoughts he had comprehended were recorded in detail. If the future generations were to refer to his book of life, they would be able to master all of his techniques in a short time. Anyone would be tempted. It could be said that this was almost a fateful encounter. Many of the strong men who had fallen in the past were the proud geniuses of the continent. How shocking were the techniques they had cultivated. In an instant, Suyu was also tempted. However, he didn't know how many experts were in the book garden now, and the danger of the central area was uncertain. Right, I remember now. They also said that the height of the trees can determine the distance from the central area. 100 feet of trees is the outermost area, 200 feet is the middle area, 300 feet is the inner area, and more than 400 feet is the central area. Suyu looked at the trees that were 1,000 feet tall in front of him, and the blue veins on his forehead bulged. Is there anything else that you haven't remembered? He had been transported to the central area of the central area. No wonder he was a genius who had reached the level of a late-stage almighty at the age of 20 just by flipping through a random book. The yardmaster's pretty face was flushed. She said, Ahem, I remember again. It's different from the book garden. After entering the book garden, if you don't open any book, the disaster of books won't affect you at all. The disaster of books only targets challengers who have read the books. At this moment, Suyu only had one thing to say, 6 words. Why didn't you say so earlier? It was too late to say anything now. The disaster of flowers wasn't over yet, but the disaster of books was right around the corner. Ahem, this place belongs to the book garden. As the flower yardmaster, I can't stay here for long. Do you have any way to shelter me? The flower yardmaster asked. She wholeheartedly wanted to follow Suyu and leave the glittering jewel wonderland. At this moment, even if Suyu drove her away, she might not be willing to leave. Suyu asked, Can an ordinary storage space be used? Upon hearing that, the yard master glared at him. What do you think? A storage space couldn't accommodate living things because of the lack of life elements. Even in all creation's old monster couldn't survive for too long. Suyu pondered seriously for a moment. There was only one space suitable for the yardmaster. Fine, I happen to have some things that need to be arranged, Suyu said. He looked around and saw a sunken basin in the distance. Then, he went there in a flash. The basin was surrounded by giant trees, and the shade of the trees was dense. Looking from above, it was difficult to see the bottom of the basin. This place was located in the center of the book garden. Naturally, it was a dangerous area, but it was also a relatively safe area for hiding. Hiding at the bottom, Suyu's arm flashed, and a mass of suspended spiritual light appeared. Gazing at the yardmaster meaningfully, Suyu said, I hope you won't get too excited, and I hope you won't do anything out of line. The yardmaster's eyes flickered slightly, and she said in surprise, A treasure that can create a space of its own? This was made by the mortal fairy. Creating a space was the unique ability of a mortal fairy. Filled with curiosity, the yardmaster's whole body glowed with fluorescent light. She turned into a daffodil, integrated into the brilliant emerald light, and entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. The moment she entered, the yardmaster exclaimed in surprise, This isn't right. What a rich spiritual energy of a world. Ordinary mortal fairies can't create such a space. When her gaze landed on a golden nursery beside the yard, she was startled at first. Then, as if she had thought of something, she took a few steps closer. Her face changed drastically, and her whole body trembled. Supreme growing soil. No, it can't be. How could there be so many of them? Supreme growing soil is hard to find in the world, but there's a whole nursery here? Am I dreaming? After being stunned for a while, the yard master had an impulse to pounce on it and transplant herself into it. Supreme growing soil had incredible effects on the growth of plants. Even as the yard master, she couldn't resist the temptation. However, Su Yu's warning appeared in her mind. She forced herself to hold it in. Biting her lip, she said with a ruddy face, "Can you let me cultivate in it for a few days and have a taste of the supreme growing soil?" She had taken the initiative to plead with the challenger. As one of the 5 yard masters of the glittering jewel wonderland, her status was undoubtedly as transcendent as that of the examiners to the challengers. To plead with the challenger, she had to lower her pride. Moreover, in her opinion, even if she begged, the other party might not agree. Supreme growing soil was a holy object that all plant creatures yearned for. It was impossible for the challenger not to understand the reason. However, just as she was feeling perturbed, Su Yu said, "As you wish." After years of observation and practice, the spirituality of a supreme growing soil wouldn't weaken just because it had been cultivated with plants. Su Yu was very sure of that. It was just sitting there. If the yard master wanted to use it, so be it. As for whether he was worried about the yard master revealing the existence of the supreme growing soil, since Su Yu had let her in, he must have made preparations. Su Yu was confident that he could erase her memory or keep her here forever. Really? The yard master was moved. Su Yu did not speak. He came before the nursery, took out a handful of crystal-colored seeds, and buried them in the supreme growing soil. These were the seeds of the grass of crystallization taken from the body of the eldest senior brother of the Heaven's Craftsman faction. They originated from the mysterious Great Oriental family. Once they came into contact with blood, they would explode madly and crystallize. When used in times of need, they would have unexpected uses. Although there were only hundreds of seeds, with the cultivation speed of the supreme growing soil and the short lifespan of the grass of crystallization, thousands of seeds of the grass of crystallization could be obtained in a short period of time. If given more time, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of seeds would not be a problem. Looking at Su Yu's back, the yard master could not hide her excitement. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. I don't have anything valuable on me, except for my honey of 100 flowers. The yard master's entire body was glowing. From the center of the stamen, 3 drops of orange-yellow liquid dripped, giving off a strong fragrance. After taking a light sniff, her mind was suddenly clear and she felt extremely comfortable. This is the essence of my original life. For living creatures, it has the ability to awaken spiritual intelligence and enhance perception. 3 drops is the limit that I can take out. Consider it as compensation for borrowing the supreme growing soil. So he did not stand on ceremony. With a roll of his big sleeves, the 3 drops of liquid landed in his palm. His eyes were filled with joy. The essence of plants and trees were all treasures. Inmu's meditation under the tree and the fountain of life were both rare treasures in the world. The honey of 100 flowers before him must also be a rare treasure. "All right, help yourself," Su Yu said. Ignoring the yard master, his figure flashed and appeared near Shungu. She was holding a golden leaf in her hand, training quietly with her eyes closed. What was surprising was that she was only a 3rd-grade fairy the last time, but now her cultivation had reached the level of a 9th-grade almighty. The difference in cultivation before and after was like heaven and earth. Even Su Yu was taken aback. Even if she could continuously absorb energy to improve her cultivation without any hindrance, had she not even passed the ordeal of the Almighty? Swoosh! Shungu opened her eyes. A pair of gray gleams flashed in the depths of her pupils, emitting a corrosive energy. "Sir!" Shungu stood up. Even though her cultivation had improved tremendously, her reverence had not changed. She returned the golden leaf with both hands. Su Yu retrieved the leaf. With a cursory glance, he found that the mortal fairy's strength within had been refined by 20%. Just 20% was enough to make a ninth grade almighty. The strength of the mortal fairy's strength was far beyond imagination. The progress of your cultivation is far beyond my imagination, Suyu exclaimed. He had thought that she might be of some use when she reached the ninth grade fairy level, but to his surprise, she had reached the level of a ninth grade almighty. Even Suyu had to use some tricks to suppress her. Sheng Ji's beautiful eyes were filled with elation. It's all thanks to the master's grace. She had never thought that she would reach such a terrifying level one day. A ninth grade almighty, only one step away from becoming a ghost general. It's because of your unique constitution that you can accommodate such enormous energy and the fact that you didn't have to face the ordeal of the ordeal, Suyu said, shaking his head slightly. Sheng Ge frowned. Didn't Master resolve the ordeal of the ordeal for me? Where did that come from? Suyu asked curiously. Sheng Ge said, when I broke through to the fairy level, I encountered the ordeal of the ordeal. Therefore, I don't have a unique constitution that is immune to the ordeal of the ordeal. A few days ago, when I broke through to the Almighty, I clearly felt that the ordeal of the ordeal was coming, but it disappeared inexplicably. Didn't Master resolve the ordeal of the Almighty? The ordeal of the ordeal couldn't descend in space. It would only appear in the outside world. The only reason she could think of was that Suyu had resolved it. Suyu had a thoughtful look on his face. He said, when you're done with your training, come out with me. With a flash of azure light, Suyu's soul returned to his body. At the same time, Sheng Ge left the Nine Jade spiritual pearl and arrived in the outside world. Stand guard for me, Suyu said, immediately sitting down with his legs crossed. Sheng Ge nodded obediently. Her bright eyes shone brightly as she surveyed her surroundings vigilantly. She didn't have the slightest intention of being reborn and running away. After such a long period of contact, looking back on the past, she only felt that she had been muddle-headed in the past. If she had to describe it, she could only say that she was clueless about being in a treasure trove of gold and silver. She didn't rely on Suyu, a nature-defying genius who had so much potential and so many precious treasures. Instead, she tried to betray him several times. How could she be described as someone who had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai? She had easily trained to the ninth grade Almighty. This was something that outsiders couldn't even imagine in the past. Now, even if she had to be banished, she would beg Suyu to stay. At that moment, Suyu had already communicated with Yun Yazi. Master, what's going on? One of my imprints broke through to the Almighty but didn't go through the ordeal of the ordeal. Such a huge thing has happened, and yet I'm completely unaware. Could it be that Master has intervened and erased the ordeal? That was the only thing Suyu could think of. A strand of hair on the top of Suyu's head swayed slightly. It transformed into a figure that appeared beside Suyu, staring at Sheng Ge. Sheng Ge didn't notice it at all. She merely glanced in the direction beside Suyu in surprise. Yun Yazi observed for a moment, his expression turning serious. It wasn't me who intervened. The reason lies with you. Suyu was shocked. Disciple? But I don't even have confidence in my own ordeal of the Almighty. How could I help her resolve it? Chapter 1000. Hearing that, Suyu said, Master, please explain. Yun Yazi said, there are strong and weak ordeals. Your 39 ordeals were too powerful, causing the little devil's ordeal to dissipate on its own. It was not that someone had resolved Sheng Ge's ordeal, but that it had dissipated on its own. Master, will this affect me? So you had a bad feeling about this. There was a price to pay for Sheng Ge's ordeal dissipating. Of course, her ordeal dissipated because of you. When you go through your ordeal in the future, it will fall on you as well. Yun Yazi looked at Suyu, his brows deeply creased. Whether Suyu could pass the 39 ordeals was already uncertain. Now that he was dealing with someone else's ordeal, the future was even more uncertain. Suyu was speechless. He could not even protect himself, yet he was unknowingly dealing with someone else's ordeal. From now on, you must stay away from anyone who goes through ordeals. Otherwise, the ordeals of others will fall on you, Yun Yazi warned. Suyu agreed. However, With so many dangers looming, Suyu was able to remain calm. Master, I will deal with the 39 ordeals with all my heart. Now, please help me modify the wooden bird. If the heavenly tribulation descended, the modified wooden bird might be of some help. Yun Yazi took the wooden bird and said, "All right, I will need about 7 days to refine it. This treasure requires a lot of mental energy from me, so I may not have the time to take care of you. Be careful in these 7 days." With that, Yun Yazi turned into a strand of hair, twining around the wooden bird and disappearing above Suyu's head. "Yes, master," Suyu said. His eyes flashed, and he took out 3 drops of orange-yellow liquid, the honey of 100 flowers, the essence of the garden master's life. Each drop could increase one's comprehension by nearly 10 times. To Suyu, this item was like a timely rain coming just in time. Just as Suyu was about to study the method to consume the honey of 100 flowers, his face suddenly flashed with a hint of vigilance. He immediately flew up to a towering tree, holding his breath as he looked below. His transparent eyes pierced through the vegetation and rocks, seeing the situation hundreds of miles away. In the dense forest, several shadows streaked through the forest. There were about 2 groups of people. The first group was dressed in purple robes, their bodies emitting a faint purple vital energy. They were the challengers of the Purple Cloud Palace. As for the latter, their clothing was a mixture of different origins. At this moment, the latter was pursuing the former ferociously. Cultivators of the Purple Cloud Palace were constantly being killed. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was huge, forming a one-sided massacre. Purple Cloud Palace? Suyu observed calmly. He wasn't someone who liked to meddle in other people's business. The Purple Cloud Palace had nothing to do with him, so there was really no need for him to save them hastily. Moreover, with the precedent of the Heaven's Craftsman faction, Suyu was even more cautious. However, when his gaze swept over the cultivators of the Purple Cloud Palace who were fleeing, his eyes were attracted by a beautiful figure in a jade-green gown. His breathing stopped. Lu Chuyi. Among the fleeing experts of the Purple Cloud Palace, there was a green leaf-like color on their purple robes. She had a tranquil and natural face, gentle and dignified. Even though she was fleeing for her life, it was difficult to conceal her elegant and calm temperament. At this moment, there were many bloody scars on her body. A faint light gathered in her pretty eyes. She gathered her genuine chi and led the cultivators of the Purple Cloud Palace to flee in the forest. "Senior Sister Lu, it's too late. We can't reach the area where Senior Brother Gu is," a thin male disciple with a sharp chin said. Lu Chi didn't look back. She was determined on the direction. "Don't look back. No one can save us except Senior Brother Gu." In the hearts of her and the strong men of the Purple Cloud Palace, Gu Taishu was their only and strongest support. This was a belief that came from the bottom of their hearts, and Lu Chui was no exception. The man with a sharp chin hesitated for a moment and said, "Junior Sister Lu, maybe Senior Brother Gu doesn't want us to rush there. We'd better think of another way." Hearing this, Lu Chui's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness. The challengers of the Purple Cloud Palace were all gathered in one place, but one person was absent. Gu Taishu. He could clearly sense their direction, but he was gradually moving further away, running in the opposite direction from them. There were rumors among the challengers who had encountered Gu Taishu that he was with the chief disciple of the heavenly demon faction, Zhong Shinxiu. Zhong Shinxiu was the most dazzling starry sky genius in the extreme north and one of the 4 great starry sky geniuses of Jiuzhou. Her brilliance overshadowed the heaven rulers of the continent. Gu Taishu, the number 1 heaven ruler of the blessed and heavenly lands, was like a firefly in front of her. There was no comparison between the two. Moreover, Zhong Shinxiu was known as the number 1 beauty of the demon faction and was known as the fairy demoness. A few years ago, the supreme heavenly demon faction had sent out invitations to all the heroes in the world to find a good spouse for Zhong Shinxiu. Gu Taishu had participated. Now that he had entered the glittering jewel wonderland, he had abandoned the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace and met up with Zhong Shinxiu thousands of miles away. The meaning behind this was thought-provoking. The feelings of the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace could be imagined. The one who was the most upset was Lu Chui. This was because Lu Chui was Gu Taishu's fiancée. Although it was not uncommon for a strong man to marry several beauties in the Jiuzhou continent, it was not a good feeling for a talented girl like Lu Chui. Don't talk nonsense. Brother Taishu is not what you think. Lu Chui turned around and glared at the sharp-chinned man. Her eyes were sharp, and the latter was so frightened that he shut his mouth. Lu Chui hid the strange expression on her face and said seriously, "Don't be discouraged. According to my senses, we should be less than half a day's journey from Brother Taishu. As long as we persist in meeting him, with Brother Taishu's power, the Heavenly Knife region will collapse." They had encountered a strong enemy in the Book Garden, the Heavenly Knife region. Moreover, it was a gathering of many genius strong men of the Heavenly Knife region. The disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace were accidentally transported to the deepest part of the Book Garden and took the initiative to pluck the most precious book of life. This book was closely related. It was a divine book that the Palace Master of the Purple Cloud Palace had specifically asked them to bring back. There were tens of millions of books of life in the Book Garden, but none of them could be compared to this book. Even for the Purple Cloud Palace, the value of all the books in the Book Garden was less than this book. Therefore, this was a book of life that recorded the life of the former starry sky genius of the continent, Mo Jidao. Throughout the ages, he was the first divine path genius to reach the peak of the pure divine decree and touch the void transformation divine decree. He had been a legend all his life. He was born without limbs, blind, deaf, and mute. He was almost a cripple. However, his comprehension was superb and could be called a miracle. With his only 5 senses and touch, he comprehended the divine path of heaven and earth. At the age of 100, he touched the threshold of the void transformation divine decree. With the amazing creation of the divine path, he defeated all the strong men of the world and became the leader of the starry sky geniuses. Even the 9 great prefectures' kings at that time had to be in awe of this mortal man. Unfortunately, he was immortal after all. 100 years was the end of his life. After participating in the glittering jewel wonderland, he passed away. For thousands of years, everyone had been looking for Mo Jidao's remains. The garden, the book garden, the martial garden, the beast garden, and the cemetery had been searched everywhere. It was not until 100 years ago that Mo Tianxian and the others found a clue. Mo Jidao might have passed away in the book garden. Throughout the ages, he was the first starry sky genius to reach the peak of the pure, divine decree. Even the 9 prefectures' kings could learn from his path on the path of the divine Tao. It also had an extraordinary impact on the all creation's strong men. For Lu Chui, this book was left for Gu Taishu, the genius who had also comprehended the pure divine decree to its peak. Throughout the ages, there was only one other person besides Mo Jidao. The significance of this book to Gu Taishu was evident. Lu Chui was eager to personally deliver this book to Gu Taishu. Her wish was very, very urgent. Now, she would rather sacrifice herself than let the most magnificent man in her heart have no fate with this book. However, the situation was very critical. The Heavenly Knife region had accomplished everything in one go. Even the number 1 heaven ruler of the Heavenly Knife region, by Ling Tian, was in pursuit. This was why the Purple Cloud Palace had been retreating in defeat and suffered a one-sided massacre. If it was an ordinary strong man, Lu Chui could rely on her cultivation to fight a 9th grade almighty. She would not be afraid of the heaven ruler of the Heavenly Knife region. However, among the 9th grade almighty of the Heavenly Knife region, there was a transcendent existence. The ancient spiritual body by Ling Tian. It was rumored that he had never been defeated in the Heavenly Knife region. He had even fought with the Heavenly Knife region master and could last 10 moves without being at a disadvantage. There was only one person in the blessed and heavenly lands who could compete with such amazing combat power. Gu Taishu. Such an absolutely crushing, invincible strong man had caused the Purple Cloud Palace to flee in large numbers. To be precise, it was thanks to Bai Ling Tian that they were able to escape. The book that Mo Dao had transformed into was the only divine book that had condensed 2 books of life. Both books recorded Mo Dao's lifetime comprehension of the divine path. They were divided into the Book of Yang and the Book of Yin, each recording Mo Dao's 2 completely different divine paths. Lu Chui had only picked the Book of Yang, but Bai Ling Tian had taken the Book of Yin. He had stayed to comprehend the Book of Yin on the spot, giving Lu Chui and the others the opportunity to escape. Otherwise, if Bai Ling Tian had attacked, none of them would have been able to walk out of the core area. Even so, they still suffered heavy casualties. Although Bai Ling Tian had not attacked, the number 2 heaven ruler of the Heavenly Knife region, Qian Feng, had led a team to hunt them down. Qian Feng's combat power was equally terrifying. It was rumored that apart from Bai Ling Tian, he had almost never been defeated in the Heavenly Knife region. There is also a rumor that Qian Feng's power was actually comparable to Gu Taishu's. Not to mention that, apart from the Vanguard, there were several 8th grade, almighty top-notch heaven rulers, each stronger and more terrifying than the last. If the Purple Cloud Palace joined forces with the Red Blood Palace, they might be able to contend with the heaven rulers of the Heavenly Knife region. It would be difficult to rely on the Purple Cloud Palace alone. Lu Chui, do you think you can escape? Qian Feng had short silver hair and a pair of peach blossom eyes. His face was rosy, and his gaze was fixed on Lu Chui's beautiful figure in the distance. Wisps of strange light rippled in his eyes. Sizzle. He took out a white jade shield, which emitted a spiritual pressure that pierced through the clouds. As soon as it appeared, the spiritual energy in the surroundings became turbulent and frantically gathered in the shield. Prison of heaven and earth. He raised his hand and tossed the shield up into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. A large amount of fluorescent light sprayed out from the shield, and wisps of it fell down densely, covering a radius of 10,000 miles. Lu Chui's eyes narrowed, and she said, "Be careful, it's a fairy artifact fragment. Perform the escape technique immediately at all costs." As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Chui pointed a finger at her abdomen. The vital energy in her body flowed in reverse, and her whole body erupted with a sonic airflow. Her whole body almost pierced through the void, moving a large distance forward. Another 4 or 5 8th grade Almighty also used their techniques to escape from the light. The rest of the people from the Purple Cloud Palace were all trapped. Qian Feng didn't look disappointed, or rather, it was exactly what he wanted. Don't worry about the challengers in the prison for now. Let's subdue Lu Chui and take the Book of Yang first. Qian Feng's gaze was still fixed on Lu Chui's beautiful figure, and he didn't look away. Wisps of anticipation ignited in the depths of his eyes. Yes, behind him, 10 8th grade Almighty, more than 27th grade Almighty, and more than 56th grade Almighty formed a semicircle, gradually closing in on Lu Chui and the others. Lu Chui yelled, "Use the secret technique and escape at all costs." Swoosh! Several residual shadows pierced through the void. Lu Chui and the others identified Gu Taishu's direction and ran for their lives. Qian Feng stood still, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Continue to chase. Although the secret technique is miraculous, the burden on the body is far beyond imagination. We just need to lock onto the target and not lose him. 6 hours passed. After using the secret technique, Lu Chui and the others had escaped to many regions. The surrounding trees were very short, almost 100 feet tall. They had already reached the outermost area of the book garden. It wouldn't be long before they could meet up with Gu Taishu. However, using the secret technique continuously consumed a lot of their energy. Most of their vital energy had been used up, and their physical strength was exhausted. Lu Chui's body was drenched in sweat. Her chest was wet, and it clung tightly to her round and plump breasts. She was panting softly through her red lips. She was exhausted. Her eyes were full of solemnity, because she hadn't succeeded in escaping from the other party's pursuit, even after using all her skills. Creak! Suddenly, several cracks appeared in the space. Lu Chui's pupils shrank slightly as the space silently split open, and several vortexes appeared. A large number of experts stepped out of the vortexes. The leader was the silver-haired Qian Feng, who had a faint smile on his face. Lu Chuyi was shocked. Space talent? No, it's some kind of space magic. Who opened the space for them? Was there an all-creation expert? The rules of the glittering jewel wonderland existed, and no all-creation expert was allowed to enter. The only explanation was that an expert had used space magic for them. The time is right. Capture them. Qian Feng smiled confidently as he stared at Lu Chuyi. His eyes lingered on her alluring body. A dozen 8th grade Almighty, more than 27th grade Almighty, and a large number of 6th grade Almighty quickly formed a circle surrounding the exhausted Lu Chuyi and the others. Even if they didn't surround them, they had no way to escape. The person who decided their fate was not themselves, but Qian Feng. Lu Chuyi, hand over the Book of Yang. Seal your fetal crystal and follow me. If you do so, I'll let your people go. Otherwise, I'll kill them first, Qian Feng said, staring at Lu Chuyi. The fetal crystal was a part similar to the fairy's dantian. Once it was sealed, the vital energy would be blocked, and the person would be like a mortal. Qian Feng also asked Lu Chuyi to follow him. His meaning was obvious. He wanted Lu Chuyi. Don't even think about getting the book or the person. Lu Chuyi's heart tightened. She held the Book of Yang in her hand, and her remaining vital energy surrounded it. Once she exerted force, she could destroy the Book of Yang and kill herself. Qian Feng said calmly, "Is that so? I don't believe that you will destroy the Book of Yang. Don't you want to leave this book for Gu Taishu? What if he misses out on a great opportunity?" Hearing this, Lu Chuyi clenched her fists, as if her weakness had been poked. Indeed, she wouldn't destroy the book just for Gu Taishu. You can read this book and memorize its contents. As long as you satisfy me, you can tell Gu Taishu about it later. Qian Feng crossed his arms and stared at Lu Chuyi confidently, as if he had her in his grasp. Lu Chuyi, the #1 genius of the blessed and heavenly lands. Such a woman is worthy of me, Qian Feng. Qian Feng's eyes became more and more passionate, almost unscrupulous. Aren't you in love with Gu Taishu? I'll give you a chance now. As long as you satisfy me and let me tame you, I'll let you bring the contents of the Book of Yang to him. Otherwise, Gu Taishu will lose the chance to obtain it. Chapter 1001. Everyone was waiting for Lu Chuyi's reply. In other words, everyone already knew Lu Chuyi's choice. They just want to give her time to say it. Everyone in the 9 prefectures knew that she was in love with Gu Taishu. Giving herself to Qian Feng in exchange for Gu Taishu obtaining the Book of Yang was an inevitable choice that Lu Chuyi would make. Purple Cloud Palace, perhaps you should try to persuade her. For the sake of Gu Taishu's future, and for the sake of your lives, it's better for her to make a decision as soon as possible. My patience is limited, Qian Feng said confidently as he scrutinized the members of the Purple Cloud Palace. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace looked at each other and fell silent, persuading their beautiful senior apprentice sister to lower her head and allow others to do as they pleased made their hearts ache. But if they didn't do this, none of them would be able to escape the fate of death. They knew what to choose between the two. However, due to Gu Taishu's reputation, they were worried that he would vent his anger on them if he found out. Hence, it was not convenient for them to persuade him. But the silence of the people of the Purple Cloud Palace was also a form of oppression. Without support, it was equivalent to isolation. Finally, after a long moment of silence, the strange expression on Lu Chuyi's face disappeared. It was replaced by calmness as she stared at Qian Feng. She had to make a choice, the only choice. The corners of Qian Feng's mouth curled up as he stared at Lu Chuyi. It was as if he had already subdued this talented, beautiful, and virtuous woman. I refuse. Only when this cold and firm refusal entered his ears did the arc on the corners of Qian Feng's mouth stiffen. Hearing the unexpected answer, the expressions of the people of the Purple Cloud Palace also changed, and they became nervous and uneasy. It was rumored that Lu Chuyi, who was loyal to Gu Taishu, would make such a choice. After a long while, the smile on Qian Feng's face disappeared, and a cold look covered his face. Is this your affection for Gu Taishu? That's all there is to it. Lu Chuyi said calmly. You don't have to sacrifice your innocence to help Brother Taishu. You can sacrifice your life, too. His calm words were filled with sonorous power that shook people's hearts. Between chastity and her life, she chose to forsake the latter. She would rather preserve her life for Gu Taishu than destroy a single strand of her chastity. Gazing at Lu Chuyi's beautiful figure, even though he was her enemy, he still felt that it was an eyesore. Whoosh! Lu Chuyi took out a talisman treasure. The talisman treasure was deep purple in color and emitted a strange, spiritual light. When the people from the Purple Cloud Palace saw this, their nervous faces immediately revealed looks of pleasant surprise. It's Senior Brother Gu's ancient spiritual body treasure talisman. Senior Brother Gu really dotes on Junior Sister Lu. He didn't hesitate to sacrifice his ancient spiritual body to forge a talisman treasure. Lu Chuyi clenched her fists, and the talisman treasure shattered. Purple heavenly splendor shot out from it. Purple light filled the sky. Everywhere it enveloped, the vital energy of all living beings froze. Even Qian Feng felt as if the Jinqi in his body had been frozen, unable to circulate even the slightest bit. Not good. It's Gu Taishu's ancient spiritual body magical power, the 9 transformations of the real spirit. Qian Feng's expression changed drastically. He had never expected that Gu Taishu would be willing to sacrifice the purity of his ancient spiritual body to refine an additional talisman treasure. Apart from Bai Lingtian, no one from the younger generation of the Heavenly Knife region could break this treasure talisman, unless he reached the Wanxiang level. The purple light only had a sealing effect on vital energy. The all-creation's mighty force could not be sustained. The power of the real spirit 9 transformations was well known among the strong men of the Heavenly Knife region. How could they underestimate it? He immediately flew to the ground. While there was still some quintessence left in his body, he quickly descended so that he would not lose the ability to fly and fall from the sky. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace reacted quickly. Each of them took out a round magic treasure from their sleeves. The white jade light that shot out enveloped their bodies. The white jade light neutralized most of the purple light, so that they could still circulate a small part of their quintessence. Although it was not enough to kill all of them, it was more than enough to escape. All of you leave. Lu Chuyi raised the treasure talisman and said without turning her head. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace were overjoyed, but they were stunned. Senior Sister Lu, what about you? I can't leave. You go first, Lu Chuyi said. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace were shocked. Activating the treasure talisman required continuous infusion of vital energy. One person had to stay. Swoosh! Lu Chuyi flipped her sleeves, and a book emitting a white light floated in her palm. Take this book with you. Tell Brother Taishu that Chuyi has let him down. Lu Chuyi threw the Book of Yang out. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace were shocked. Lu Chuyi had chosen to stay. With her loyalty to Gu Taishu, she would not live in this world. When they escaped with the Book of Yang, Lu Chuyi would choose to commit suicide. What they did not understand was the meaning of Lu Chuyi's last apology. Had Lu Chuyi let Gu Taishu down? Time waited for no man, and the treasure talisman could not last long. The man with the pointy chin nodded and grabbed the Book of Yang. He looked at Lu Chuyi's back and said, "Okay, I will deliver your message." At this moment, the man with the pointy chin's tone suddenly changed, and a mocking sneer appeared on his lips. But not now. Bang! The man with the pointy chin suddenly did something unexpected. He hit Lu Chuyi's back with his palm. The huge palm force penetrated Lu Chuyi's chest, and her internal organs were severely injured. Lu Chuyi, who was holding the treasure talisman and fighting the enemy with all her might, could not guard against a counterattack from behind. With a painful groan, her body flew forward like a butterfly, and her blood stained the blue sky. Zhaoli, you betrayed us. The rest of the people of the Purple Cloud Palace were shocked and roared. It was not a secret that the Heavenly Knife region had planted their own disciples in the sects of the Blessed and Heavenly Lands, just like how the Blessed and Heavenly Lands had planted talented experts in the Heavenly Knife region. However, Zhaoli, who was ranked third in the Purple Cloud Palace, a core disciple among the core disciples, was actually a well-hidden traitor. Suddenly, they understood why the news of Mo Jidao's Yin Yang Divine Book had been leaked so quickly. And why couldn't they escape the pursuit of the experts of the Heavenly Knife region? It was because the traitor kept providing them with the specific location. Lu Chui was seriously injured, and her meridians were broken. She could not operate her vital energy, and the treasure talisman immediately dimmed without the support of her vital energy. The endless purple splendor in the sky quickly faded, and a large number of experts of the Heavenly Knife region, who were suppressed, quickly recovered the control of their vital energy. "Don't worry about me, Run." Lu Chui knew that the situation was hopeless. She was still retreating, and she shouted. The people of the Purple Cloud Palace gritted their teeth and fled before the experts of the Heavenly Knife region recovered. "Let's find Senior Brother Gu. Only he can save Junior Sister Lu." But they knew that it would be too late when Senior Brother Gu came back. Even if Junior Sister Lu was not killed, she would have been played by Qian Feng, and her chastity would be gone. For Lu Chui, who was as pure as ice and as clean as jade, who valued her chastity far more than her life, she would kill herself before the enemy did it. Swoosh! A group of human figures streaked across the sky and disappeared. When the purple splendor in the sky dissipated and the experts of the Heavenly Knife region regained their mobility, they had already escaped from the sensing range. Zhao Li touched his sharp chin and handed over the Book of Yang with a smile. Qian Feng operated the vital energy in his body and grabbed the Book of Yang. He praised, "Well done. Thank goodness I left you a way out. When we return to the Heavenly Knife region, I will definitely ask for the Region Master's credit." Zhao Li said, "It is my honor to serve the Region Master. Senior Brother, please give me some men to hunt down those defeated soldiers. They know my real identity, and they must not be left alive." "No need. The Region Master has ordered that there is no need to continue planting spies in the glittering jewel wonderland. You will come back to report sooner or later." Qian Feng looked at the Book of Yang in his hand, and then at Lu Chui, who was lying on the ground and seriously injured. His eyes shone with a bright light. "Besides, I have already gotten what I wanted. So what if those defeated soldiers escape?" Zhao Li rolled his eyes and glanced at Lu Chui, who was covered in blood and on the verge of passing out. He showed a trace of pity. Such a beautiful woman was about to be defiled. "Hee, Senior Marshal Brother Qian. This woman has a lofty personality. Once she wakes up, she will most likely commit suicide. Senior Marshal Brother, if you want to have a taste of this heaven's chosen one, now is the time." Zhao Li smiled. The rest of the people of the Heavenly Knife region also smiled knowingly. Qian Feng, apart from cultivating martial arts, was only interested in one other thing in his life: women. Moreover, only those famous and outstanding women would be able to catch his eye. Lu Chui, known as the first female heaven ruler of the blessed and heavenly lands, was a rare beauty. Qian Feng had coveted her for a long time. Qian Feng gazed at Lu Chui's slender figure lying on the ground. Her slender legs, her slender waist, her snow-white neck, her delicate and elegant face, and her blurred eyes, which were half awake. Qian Feng stared at Lu Chui, who was lying on the ground. Licking his lips, Qian Feng's index finger twitched. He raised his hand and pointed. An invisible force restrained the soft Lu Chui. He said, "You guys rest here. I'll be right back." Holding Lu Chui's slender body, Qian Feng tiptoed away from the crowd and came to a flat bluestone in a quiet valley. He waved his sleeves, and Lu Chui was laid flat on the ground. Her soft body was exposed to Qian Feng, completely defenseless. Qian Feng's eyes were burning. His mouth was dry, and his abdomen was swollen. "Lu Chui, I'll have a taste of you myself." Qian Feng's body shook, and his clothes were torn to shreds. At the same time, he clawed at Lu Chui's dress. He wanted to remove the sacred snow-white peaks hidden deep inside. However, just as his palm was about to reach her, a ball of wine-red light appeared around Lu Chui's body without warning. Then, her body disappeared, and his clawed hand missed. The power of space. Qianfeng's expression changed. Without thinking, Qianfeng retreated hastily. The moment he retreated, a half-round, half-yellow ball fell from the sky, shattering the blue stone under his feet along with the land. Qianfeng broke out in a cold sweat. The ball almost brushed past him. The cold, oppressive force made Qianfeng feel like he was facing a mortal fairy. It was as if he would be crushed to pieces if he came into contact with it. Who is it? He was shocked and angry. Someone had ruined his fun. He looked up and saw a silver-masked, white-haired silhouette floating in the void. His right hand was holding Lu Chui. With a wave of his left hand, the terrifying ball flew back into his palm like a feather. Suyu looked down at him and stared at the space ring on his fingertip, showing a hint of interest. Suyu heard everything that was said between the two of them. Mo Jidao was a heaven-defying genius of the starry sky thousands of years ago. He was the first divine path strong man to condense the pure divine decree to the peak. In a sense, he was the forerunner of Su Yu and Gu Taishu. His path to the divine path had an unimaginable significance. Unfortunately, even when Qianfeng was at his most careless, he still managed to dodge Su Yu's attack. The commotion here was not small. The other strong men of the Heavenly Knife region would be rushing over soon. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands, not to mention that there were more than 80 people on the other side, and they all had treasures that allowed them to travel through the void. Suyu grabbed Lu Chui's palm and infused it with vital energy. The wisp of vital energy entered the talisman through her jade-like hand. The dim talisman once again burst into a brilliant purple splendor, enveloping the sky. Stop! Qianfeng was shocked. However, under the purple light, no one could avoid it except for the one who activated it. His vital energy was frozen. Qianfeng could not use his magical powers, and he could not even open his space ring. He was naked and unarmed. Suyu's eyes turned cold. He flew down, and 5 demonic dragons whizzed out of his body, roaring as they swooped down to attack Qianfeng. The vital energy seal is no match for a clown. Qianfeng bellowed. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists, squatted down, and was as steady as a rock. When the demonic dragons arrived, his fists punched out like 2 dragons emerging from the sea. With the dull sound of thunder, the 2 attacking demonic dragons were punched through by his fists, turning into phantoms and flying away. Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. Not only was this person's cultivation top-notch, but his body was also extraordinarily strong. He was only slightly weaker than Yu Liang of the Heaven's Craftsman faction. However, that was not Suyu's goal. As the demonic dragons collapsed, a remnant shadow glided out of Suyu's sleeve, cutting a pitch-black crack in the void, and silently sliced through Qianfeng's right palm. Qianfeng's right palm fell immediately, and the cut on his arm was as smooth as a mirror. When Qianfeng noticed it, an invisible thread wrapped around his arm and flew in Suyu's direction. My space ring. Qianfeng immediately realized Suyu's true intentions. His face changed, and he exerted strength in his legs. His whole body was like a spring, leaping thousands of feet into the air. He quickly caught up with the palm and grabbed it with his left hand. However, at that moment, a rapidly oppressive black shadow attacked. It was the horrifying ball. Qianfeng's face fell, and he had to withdraw his hand. He stepped on the void and changed his direction, brushing past the ball. Having lost the ability to leap, his body fell in a state of free fall, and the distance between him and Suyu was getting farther and farther. Swoosh! The right palm flew back into Suyu's palm. Suyu smiled. Thank you for your help. Grabbing Qianfeng's palm with his left hand and the unconscious Lu Chui with his right, Suyu flew away with the wind. I'm going to tear you into pieces. Qianfeng stood on the ground, watching Suyu escape, and roared madly. The beauty he was about to taste was snatched away, and even Mo Jidao's Book of Yang, which he had painstakingly obtained, was snatched away. Qianfeng, who had never tasted defeat in his life, felt utterly humiliated. What made it worse was that if Bai Ling Tian found out that he had lost the Book of Yang because of his lust for a woman, he would be severely punished. When Suyu was far away, the purple light dissipated. The affected strong men of the Heavenly Knife region rushed over. Seeing Qian Feng's naked body with his severed arm, they looked at each other in dismay. Could that woman have suddenly launched an attack, causing Qian Feng to go for wool and come home shorn? Go after him immediately. Qian Feng's face was flushed red, and he bellowed in anger. The vital energy in his body rolled out in all directions like an avalanche. Swish! His figure was like lightning, chasing after Suyu. As for Suyu, he held Lu Chuyi with one hand, and the other was bursting with flames, burning Qian Feng's right palm into ashes. Not a single drop of blood was left, ensuring that he would not be pursued by the scent. Among the ashes, there was a space ring. It belonged to Qian Feng. Mo Jidao's Book of Yang was in it. Chapter 1002. Apart from being easy to hide in, the deep forest also had another use. There were more than just challengers from the Heavenly Knife region and the Purple Cloud Palace in the core of the forest. If they entered the forest, they could confuse their pursuers. Half a day later, he returned to the depths of the forest. The other party had used the ability to cross the void several times to chase after him, but Suyu had sensed the space fluctuations in advance and avoided them. Although it was frightening, it was not dangerous. Along the way, as Suyu had expected, he discovered many unfamiliar challengers. They didn't belong to either the Blessed and Heavenly Lands or the Heavenly Knife region. Their presence had indeed diverted the attention of the Heavenly Knife region's powerful fighters, and the number of pursuers gradually decreased. After about 4 hours, there was still no sign of the enemy. Suyu's eyes flashed as he landed on a cliff wall. There was a nest dug by a flying demonic beast halfway up the cliff wall. Moreover, it was covered by the clouds, making it very well hidden. In the cave, Suyu put Lu Chuyi down and placed his index and middle fingers on her wrist. He then transferred a shred of vital energy into her body and circulated it throughout her body. After the inspection, Suyu furrowed his brows. Her injuries weren't serious, but they weren't light either. She was bathed in blood, and her genuine chi and physical strength were exhausted. But these were only superficial wounds. The most serious was the palm strike from the traitor of the Purple Cloud Palace, Zhao Li. It was both ruthless and accurate. Several of her meridians were broken, and her internal organs were severely injured. Coupled with the lack of genuine chi in her body, she had lost the ability to heal herself and needed external treatment. With Su Yu's level 9 Fairy Realm vital energy, he was barely able to reconnect her broken internal energy channels and heal her internal injuries. However, even if she was healed, Lu Chuyi wouldn't be able to fight intensely for a short period of time. She needs someone to look after her. Looking at Qing Ye's unconscious face, the scenes that had played out with her in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion flowed through his mind. At first, he looked up at her in shock, but then he hugged her in the snowy night when she was in trouble. Finally, they had intercourse in the Sea of Fire. The memory stopped at the end, and some guilt filled his heart. Suyu could not let go of the fact that he had stolen the chastity of a woman who already had a lover. "I've saved you once, so we're even," Suyu mumbled to himself. Given the perils of the glittering jewel wonderland, it was an extremely dangerous thing to do to treat someone's injuries with all his vital energy. Moreover, they were being pursued by the Heavenly Knife region. Now that he had helped her, he had repaid what he owed her. Suyu supported her with his vital energy and sat down cross-legged in front of him. A pair of palms gently pressed against her back. Soft touch like holding cotton, warm and comfortable. Suyu's eyes were clear. Within his enormous dantian, vital energy was surging and pouring into Lu Chuyi's body. Powerful vital energy surged into Lu Chuyi's meridians. A sharp pain was transmitted to the depths of Lu Chuyi's brain, waking her up from her coma. Lu Chuyi's clear eyes slowly opened. After a moment of confusion, she slammed her hands on the ground, as if she was about to shoot up. She shouted softly, "Who is it?" In his memories, he was heavily injured by Zhao Li. Naturally, he realized that he might have fallen into Qian Feng's hands. However, before he could jump up, a big hand pressed down on his shoulder. Suyu's voice came from behind him. Try to guide me to inject vital energy into your body to repair your internal energy channels. Lu Chuyi was startled and gradually stopped. Lu Chuyi exclaimed, Su Yuxian? After asking, he turned around and saw that it was indeed Su Yuxian. It's my honor that you remember my voice. Suyu was slightly surprised that Lu Chuyi would remember his voice. There wasn't much interaction between Su Yuxian and Lu Chuyi. Lu Chuyi turned around and stared at Suyu. Through the silver mask, she stared at his eyes. A hint of darkness flashed in the depths of her pupils. Master Su is extremely talented. Of course I recognize you. Actually, it was all because Su Yuxian was extremely similar to the silhouette of the silver-haired youth that remained in her mind. Unknowingly, she had paid more attention to Su Yuxian and remembered his voice. Miss Lu, you flatter me. Suyu retracted his palm from her shoulder, once again injecting vital energy into his hands. Lu Chuyi turned around, lowering her head in silence. She did not know why, but she trusted Su Yuxian, just like she trusted the silver-haired youth, Inu. Thank you, Master Su, Lu Chuyi said in a low voice. Lu Chuyi said in a low voice. She closed her eyes slowly and guided his vital qi to repair his meridians and injuries. After the vital energy had completed a great cycle, the broken internal energy channels were completely repaired. All that was left were her damaged internal organs, which still needed a great cycle. The so-called great cycle referred to the circulation of vital energy through all the internal energy channels in the body. A great cycle referred to the 9 main internal energy channels and 81 small internal energy channels, all of which were circulated once. Master Su, I will heal myself from now on. Since my internal energy channels have recovered, I can absorb vital energy on my own, Lu Chuyi said. The body of a divine master was far superior to that of a fairy. The amount of vital energy needed to complete a great cycle was far greater than that of a fairy's internal energy channels. For a late-stage, 8th grade divine master like Lu Chuyi, the amount of vital energy needed to complete a great cycle was even greater. The fact that Su Yu, with his 9th grade fairy cultivation, had completed a great cycle in her body had already surprised her. It seemed that Su Yuxian's fairy foundation was extremely solid, far superior to that of an ordinary 9th grade fairy. The next treatment required the 49 small internal energy channels near her internal organs to circulate more than 10 small cycles. The amount of vital energy required was no less than a great cycle. With Su Yu's cultivation, it was obvious that he could not continue. Su Yu closed his eyes, not even lifting his head as he said, "Focus on guiding me. You don't have to worry about the vital energy." Lu Chuyi was surprised. She looked back and was surprised to see that Su Yu's face was still the same, even though he had injected so much vital energy. Feeling anxious, Lu Chuyi continued to guide the vital energy to heal her internal injuries. Every time she completed a great cycle, she would look back at Su Yu's appearance. Every time, she became more and more surprised. It's already been 3 small cycles. Is there any more vital energy left? Lu Chuyi was shocked. Usually, during the fairy period, the more vigorous the vital energy in the Dantian was, the easier it was to condense the fetal crystal. Moreover, the fetal crystal would become more solid, and the explosive power would be far greater than that of the same level. When Brother Taishu was a 9th grade fairy, the amount of vital energy in his Dantian was equivalent to 1 great cycle and 5 small cycles for me. He has already achieved 1 great cycle and 3 small cycles. He is not far behind Brother Taishu. Lu Chuyi was secretly surprised. She had thought that Su Yuxian was only proficient in Mu words. She did not expect the fairy's foundation to be so terrifyingly deep. But soon, her surprise turned into astonishment. Before long, Suyu had completed the 5th small cycle. Moreover, there was not much change in his expression. How did he train his Dantian? Lu Chuyi was shocked. The training of the Dantian required great perseverance. It required suppressing one's cultivation and forcibly tempering the dantian with vital energy, forcing the dantian to become more solid and able to contain more vital energy. Gu Taishu's reserve of vital energy might not be the greatest on the continent, but it was more than enough to rank among the top 10. The fact that Su Yu had surpassed him with such ease had completely overturned Lu Chuyi's perception. Su Yu, on the other hand, looked calm as he continued to operate the vital energy in his body. The 6th cycle, the 7th cycle, the 8th cycle. The shock in Lu Chuyi's heart could no longer be described with words. Su Yu had undergone a subversive change in her heart. He was not a nameless challenger. He was obviously a top-notch heaven ruler who had been overlooked. Although it was impossible for him to catch up with a top-notch heaven ruler like Gu Taishu, it was not a problem for him to look down on most of his peers. The 9th cycle, the 10th cycle, everything was as Su Yu had expected. He had just used up all the vital energy in his body, and his face turned pale for the first time. Lu Chuyi's beautiful eyes shone brightly, as if she was getting to know Su Yu all over again. She looked him up and down. Master Su, the strength of your dantian is unprecedented. Not to mention her, even the true man of the purple cloud had never seen such a powerful and mutated dantian. After all, rebuilding the dantian was easier said than done. But which martial artist would be willing to destroy their own dantian and start all over again? Unless they were in a desperate situation like Su Yu's, where his dantian was shattered, no one would try it. Su Yu breathed out a mouthful of murky air and weaved signs with his hands. Without opening his eyes, he said, "Miss Lu, hurry up and recover your vital energy. Time and tide wait for no man." The pursuers could be here at any time. Sensing Su Yu's indifference, Lu Chuyi stared into his eyes. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but she nodded silently. "Thank you." She did not ask why Su Yu had helped her out of nowhere. They had never met before. What was Su Yu's motive for doing so, even though he was facing the danger of running out of vital energy and was being chased by soldiers? Perhaps she already had the answer in her heart. An hour had passed, and they were both racing against time to recover their vital energy. With the help of various elixirs and medicines, Su Yu had recovered 30% of his energy, and so had Lu Chuyi. It was barely enough to escape, but it was dangerous to face the enemy, especially when there were too many of them. Just as they were about to continue, Su Yu's ears twitched and his eyes widened. 5 demonic dragons pierced out his chest and flew into the cave on the cliff. A horrible shriek was heard from outside the cave, and the sound of something tearing through the air disappeared rapidly. Su Yu rushed out of the cave in a flash, as fast as lightning. A blurry figure disappeared into the horizon. He had lost his target, even if he wanted to chase after it. Looking at the sky again, black ashes were falling, and he could vaguely make out the clothes of the heavenly knife region. One had been killed, and the other had escaped. "We have to leave quickly." Su Yu frowned slightly. The other party had the magical power to move through the void. As long as they locked onto their general location, it was only a matter of time before they caught up to them. Lu Chuyi pursed her red lips and looked at Su Yu. She folded her sleeves and bowed to him. Solemnly, she said, "Master Su, I will never forget your kindness in saving my life. However, the target of the heavenly knife region is me, and it has nothing to do with you. You should leave quickly. I will stay here alone to buy you some time." Su Yu sighed silently. How could he leave Lu Chuyi alone? Since he had not helped her resolve her difficulties, how could he let her go? Moreover, with her wounded body, she couldn't buy time at all. In a few rounds, she would be subdued by a 9th-grade almighty like Zhao Li, not to mention Qianfeng, whose abilities were unknown. "How can you see your brother Taishu if you die? Come with me. We might have a way to deal with them," Su Yu said, his eyes gleaming. He had already made up his mind. Lu Chuyi was stunned. She looked up at Su Yu, her heart trembling. After a moment of hesitation, she looked into Su Yu's eyes and said, "Master Su, may I ask if you know a man named Yu?" Su Yu was touched. She still remembered him. For a moment, Su Yu wanted to admit it, but he shook his head and said softly, "I don't know him." When he finished speaking, He stepped out with his hands clasped behind his back and strode deeper into the forest. Half a cup of tea's time after they left. 5 cracks appeared in the air above the cliff. Qian Feng, Zhao Li, and the other strong men of the Heavenly Knife region stepped out of them. Zhao Li stared at the cave and said, "I will go in and search." Qian Feng glanced at the cave and looked deeper into the forest. He said coldly, "There is no need to look at the cave. Unless Su Yu and the others were careless, they would not dare to stay in the cave." But, judging from a situation along the way, Su Yu was more quick-witted and had headed straight for the core area of the forest. How could he continue to stay in the cave? Target, the core area of the bookyard. Qian Feng's severed right hand had recovered. He clenched it into a fist, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Lure me into the depths of the forest. Fine, I'll play with you this once." Swish! The dark mass of challengers was like a dark cloud, approaching the center of the bookyard. Such a huge force could not be stopped by a single soldier. Although Su Yu had many tricks up his sleeve, he could not deal with so many strong men. Once they caught up to him, they would definitely die, unless they fled for their lives. Facing danger, Su Yu and Lu Chuyi flew to the center of the bookyard. Although it was the center of the bookyard, there was no one there at the moment. On one hand, the battle between the Heavenly Knife region and the Purple Cloud Palace had scared away the strong men nearby, causing them to scatter to other areas. On the other hand, the news that the strong men of the Heavenly Knife region were approaching the area had spread like wildfire, and the challengers had fled. Why did we return to the center area? Lu Chuyi was puzzled. At this moment, unless they found Gu Taishu or the people of the Red Blood Palace, they might stand a chance if they joined forces. There was no chance of victory with just the 2 of them. Su Yu looked around and narrowed his eyes. "This place is our hope of escaping." He stroked a ring on his fingertip, and 9 spheres of the same size floated on the surface of Su Yu's body. 8 of them were silvery white, and 1 was half blue and half yellow. Looking at the 8 silvery white spheres, Lu Chuyi took out a section of golden bamboo from her sleeve. At the moment, the bamboo was trembling lightly in her palm, emitting a continuous low hum. Resonance! Lu Chuyi was shocked. Her heavenly orchid silver bamboo was resonating with the 9 spheres. All of a sudden, a thought flashed across Lu Chuyi's mind. A fully matured heavenly orchid silver bamboo. Her eyes were fixed on the 9 spheres, and her pretty face was filled with excitement and surprise. She almost cried out in surprise. No one knew better than her how precious the heavenly orchid silver bamboo was. It was the greatest divine bamboo in the Jiuzhou continent. The all creation's old monsters had to water it day and night for hundreds of years before it matured. In this world, it was almost extinct. Even if it survived, it was just a young one like the one in her hand. Seeing the matured heavenly orchid silver bamboo with her own eyes was like a dream to her. How could she have known that the source of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo was the 2 seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo that she had gifted them all those years ago? That was why her heavenly orchid silver bamboo was resonating with the 8 silvery white spheres before her. It was because they came from the same source. Su Yu's heart stirred, and he looked at the familiar heavenly orchid silver bamboo in Lu Chuyi's hand. In the past, he had been so envious of the astonishing power of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo. But now, with the passage of time, even Su Yu found it difficult to take notice of the silver bamboo. Turning a blind eye to her expression, Su Yu weaved signs with both hands and pointed at the 9 spheres from afar. The 8 spheres immediately emitted space ripples, hiding the 9th sphere in the void. Unless an all-creation's old monster, who was proficient in the power of space, came personally, it would be impossible to detect their presence. After doing this, Su Yu's eyes flashed. He glanced at the tree of life around him and said, "Miss Lu, are you interested in helping me chop some trees?" Chop trees? Lu Chuyi was obviously taken aback. The strong men of the Heavenly Knife region were approaching. Was there still time to chop trees? Chapter 1003. With suspicion, Lu Chuyi wielded the heavenly orchid silver bamboo and slashed at the nearest pitch-black tree. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo was indestructible. A smooth cut could be seen at the root of a huge, pitch-black tree that was 1,000 feet tall. The Book of Life condensed at the top of the tree, lost its foundation, and began to spontaneously combust. Just like when it fell to the ground, it turned into ashes that drifted into the void. Immediately afterward, the entire tree also turned into nothingness, leaving behind a huge crater, telling the story of the tree of life that once stood here. Is one enough? Lu Chui looked at Suyu and asked. Suyu's lips curled into a mysterious smile. How is one enough? 5 demonic dragons roared out of Suyu's chest and flew around. Whether it was the demonic dragon's body, head, or long tail, as long as it touched the tree of life, it would be reduced to nothingness along with the Book of Life. In the blink of an eye, a demonic dragon swept through 7 or 8 trees of life. The 5 demonic dragons flew out together. In a short time, 40 to 50 300-meter-tall trees of life were razed to the ground, leaving pockmarked pits of various sizes. Lu Chui clicked her tongue. What are you doing? Even if we can't use these books of life, isn't it too much to destroy them? To Lu Chui, who was an 8th grade almighty, the lifetime experience of the previous challengers didn't mean much to her. But to the other challengers, it was a precious treasure that was comparable to creation. Destroying it just like that was tantamount to cutting off the other trial takers' chances. So you only smiled and did not speak. He continued to use the 9 dragons' devil-subduing art, destroying the tree of life one after another. Lu Chui stared at Suyu for a moment. She had no choice but to believe him. Not only did she use the heavenly orchid silver bamboo, but she also used all of her golden leaves. Walala! Dense cracking sounds rang out as the trees of life disappeared one after another under the two's wanton assault. If there were other trial takers here, they would definitely gnash their teeth at their actions. Suddenly, a faintly discernible fluctuation appeared. It was a very faint fluctuation that was hard to detect. It was as if something was silently approaching. Trial takers, have you had enough? A hollow voice suddenly came from the void. Lu Chui was shocked and looked around. Who is it? Come out. Suyu acted as if he hadn't heard anything. Without turning his head, he said coldly, If you know what's good for you, stay out of the business of the Heavenly Knife region. Heavenly Knife region? Lu Chui was startled, and a trace of understanding flashed across her beautiful eyes. Since the Heavenly Knife region has no use for the Book of Life here, of course, we have to destroy it. Otherwise, it would be a waste for the other challengers. Lu Chui said coldly. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo and the golden leaves danced rapidly in her palm, destroying one tree of life after another. The hollow voice was mixed with a trace of deep anger. Are all of you challengers so selfish and self-centered? Even if I can't use it, I'll destroy it and prevent other trial takers from obtaining it. Suyu stopped and looked around with narrowed eyes. I'll give you one last piece of advice. If you don't want to get yourself killed, don't meddle in the affairs of the Heavenly Knife region. The two of us are only the vanguard. The main force is still behind us. If you don't want to die, scram immediately. Hearing this, the surrounding air suddenly froze, and a murderous aura slowly descended with killing intent. Swoosh! A whirlwind suddenly appeared in the vast, empty area that had been razed to the ground. Within the whirlwind, a huge 3-foot-long book of black, white, and blue colors floated in the void. The newcomer wasn't a human, but a strange book. Book? What are you? Suyu frowned, looking a little surprised. A furious voice came from the 3-colored book. I'm the guardian of this place. In the words of you challengers, I am the yardmaster of the bookyard. What? The yardmaster of the bookyard? Suyu and Lu Chui's faces were filled with horror. Traces of panic filled their faces. Impossible. It is said that the yardmaster of the bookyard never shows himself. No matter how the Book of Life is taken, the yardmaster won't be drawn here. Lu Chui was extremely surprised. The 3-colored book's tone was contemptuous. Of course, I don't need to show myself when I take the Book of Life. But you have destroyed the Tree of Life wantonly and affected the trials of the other challengers. How can I not show myself? Lu Chuyi still didn't believe it. Then why has no one seen you before? The three-colored book was surrounded by wisps of murderous intent. Because I only show myself when someone destroys the bookyard maliciously. As for those who destroy the bookyard, I leave them in the bookyard and turn them into a tree of life. Why do you think no one has ever seen me before? Because those who had seen it were all dead. Su Yu and Lu Chuyi felt their blood run cold. It had summoned the bookyard. The sense of danger it exuded far exceeded that of the garden master. The garden master was a plant creature after all, and didn't have a strong murderous intent. But the bookyard master had read the life experiences of countless challengers and had long seen through the affairs of the world. It was aloof and emotionless. Killing, to it, was just a trivial matter, especially when the person it killed was a daring and malicious perpetrator like Su Yu, who had destroyed the bookyard. Do you think that since the beginning of time, your so-called heavenly knife region is the only influence that wants to destroy the bookyard and prevent others from progressing? Haven't you ever wondered why the bookyard hasn't been destroyed since the beginning of time? The yardmaster's tone was full of disdain. Indeed, in the Jojo continent, there was a divine realm that could be called a land of creation, or would be occupied by powerful influences and used only by their own disciples, or it would be burned to the ground. Only then would the great influences feel at ease. However, the bookyard had been safe and sound since the beginning of time. It was obvious that there was something fishy about it. The fishy thing was that the yardmaster, the guardian of the bookyard, had been preventing the yardmaster from being destroyed since the beginning of time. Every time it appeared, it would be the day of a massacre. Lu Chi stepped back slowly, her eyes filled with terror. Senior brother, we seem to have gotten into trouble, so you also looked fearful. Ask the faction for help immediately. No matter how powerful the yardmaster is, she's alone. The two of them immediately turned around and fled. The yardmaster said indifferently, I haven't killed anyone for dozens of years. The challengers have forgotten my existence. A thick murderous intent shot up into the sky. Looking coldly in the direction where Su Yu had fled, the yard master snorted coldly. A crack in the space appeared around it, and it spun and disappeared into it. Su Yu and Lu Chui had only escaped a few hundred miles when a crack appeared in front of them. Oh no! Space teleportation! Lu Chui exclaimed. She grabbed Su Yu and flew backward. Buzz! A gust of all creation's mighty force penetrated the void and killed the two of them. Fight! Hold on until the faction's reinforcements arrive. Then we'll be saved. Su Yu bellowed anxiously. He flung out 5 writing brushes, each of which was of a different color. The writing brushes floated in the air and shot out 5 beams of light of different colors. They shrouded a part of the sky and engulfed the cracked void. Enveloped by the 5-colored light beams, the void vibrated. A 3-colored book was sealed by a gust of 5-colored light and was pushed out of the crack in the void. The yardmaster's indifferent voice revealed a hint of surprise. What a powerful sealing formation. Even a stage 1, all-creation strongman could seal it for a while. It stared at Su Yu coldly, its murderous intent increasing instead of diminishing. You came prepared. Challengers of the Heavenly Knife region. In fact, it didn't know that this was the compressed version of the 5-elemental heaven extinguishing formation. Moreover, under Su Yu's control, it only exerted less than 1/10 of the power of the compressed version. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been difficult to seal it in the formation forever, let alone for a while. This was one of Su Yu's hidden trump cards. As Su Yu fled, he turned back and sneered. Humph, I want your life. Wait for the arrival of the strong men of the Heavenly Knife region. I want you to die a horrible death. The yardmaster was completely infuriated. Suppressed by the 5-colored light beams, she bellowed angrily. Su Yu sneered and fled into the distant sky hand in hand with Lu Chui. It was only when Su Yu reached a mountain range that he stopped. Lu Chui's pretty eyes looked over, excitement and agitation lingering on her fair face. So this is the reason for cutting down the trees. Lu Chui looked at each other and smiled. Wantonly destroying the forest to attract the yardmaster and then frame the Heavenly Knife region. But there's one thing I don't understand. How can you be sure that the book yardmaster will show up because of the destruction of the forest? If she doesn't show up, won't you be wasting precious escape time? Lu Chuyi's pretty eyes shone. Suyu smiled confidently. Didn't the bookyard master already answer that? There's only one explanation for a divine realm like the book garden not being forcefully occupied or destroyed by someone. Something is guarding the book garden. And for it to be able to protect the book garden from all the genius trial takers of the past, the guardian's cultivation should be at the all creations level. It's very easy to guess its identity. The book garden master. So, when I show up as the destroyer, the yard master will show up. Lu Chuyi's eyes shone brilliantly. Master, you have great foresight. Chuyi admires you. Suyu laughed. Miss Lu's reaction isn't slow either. Without Lu Chuyi's cooperation, deceiving the yard master into believing that they were from the Heavenly Knife region wouldn't have been easy. Lu Chuyi's pretty face flushed. This was the first time she had deceived someone like this. Master, had we succeeded just like that? Lu Chuyi asked. The yard master was enraged and believed that they were challengers of the Heavenly Knife region. What would happen next was something to be anticipated. Suyu shook his head slightly. It's still not enough. The Heavenly Knife region isn't a fool. They won't fall for our tricks easily. Half a cup of tea later, 5 space cracks appeared in the center of the bookyard. Qianfeng and the others stepped out of the cracks. There were more than 80 of them, and they were mighty and imposing. The aura they exuded was extraordinary. Su Yuxian. Qianfeng's eyes narrowed as he glanced around. Suddenly, his gaze froze and fixed on the multicolored brilliance in front of him. A 3-colored book was shrouded by the multicolored brilliance and suppressed to the point that it couldn't move. Qianfeng was startled at first, and then his expression changed. He was secretly shocked. The 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation. The unique skill of the 5 golden light guards of the Central Prefecture's king. Impossible. Have they entered the glittering jewel wonderland too? Zhao Li also looked surprised and bewildered. His gaze passed through the multicolored brilliance and fell on the 3-colored book. A sense of uneasiness welled up in his heart. Senior Brother Qian, what is that book? It can't be a simple thing, can it? It can't be sealed and suppressed by the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation, right? Qianfeng looked at the book for a moment, and his pupils suddenly froze. Black, white, and blue, the 3-colored divine book. It's the yard master of the book yard, one of the fiercest yard masters. A shiver of fear rippled from the depths of his heart. What? It's the yard master of the book yard. Zhao Li gasped. To them, the yard master was a dominator that they had to look up to. The gap between all creations and Almighty was such a despairing one after another. Upon hearing that, the strong men of the Heavenly Knife region turned pale. They couldn't help but look timid, not daring to advance any further. Qianfeng's eyes flickered again and again. If they retreated now, they could indeed stay away from the unknown danger. However, Mo Jidao's Book of Yang had been lost, and he couldn't report to Bai Ling Tian. His fate would be just as terrible. Staring at the sealed yard master, Qianfeng bellowed in a low voice, "Don't be afraid, everyone. The bookyard master has been sealed. If we pass through quickly, there shouldn't be any problem." With his reassurance, the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region calmed down a little. They walked in the direction of the seal, trembling with fear and trepidation. They were prepared to bypass it and continue their pursuit of Su Yu and the others. However, in the eyes of the yard master, they were approaching it step by step with ulterior motives. Are you challengers of the Heavenly Knife region? The bookyard master stared at them and spoke for the first time. Qianfeng was instantly on guard. The rest of the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region also turned pale with fright. They were terrified and uneasy. They had been noticed by the yard master. Qianfeng suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and said calmly, "Yes. May I ask what advice you have for us, Lord Yard Master?" The yard master sneered. "You are extremely audacious. How would I dare to give you advice?" Qianfeng frowned discreetly. The tone of the bookyard master didn't seem right. A thought flashed across Su Yu's mind. Qianfeng cupped his fists and said, "May I ask, Yard Master, have you fallen into the trap of some villain who is trying to incite us?" Upon hearing that, the Yard Master was taken aback. She asked coldly, "What do you mean?" Qianfeng pondered for a moment and said, "To be honest, we seized Mo Jidao's Book of Yang, but the Book of Yang was stolen by two people along the way. We chased them all the way, but they fled straight to the center of the book yard. I suspect that he must be plotting something by luring us deep into the Heavenly Knife region." The yard master looked doubtful. "Is that so? Just now, they claimed to be disciples of the Heavenly Knife region and wantonly destroyed the Tree of Life. Could it be that they wanted to infuriate me and then vent their anger on you?" Upon hearing that, the people of the Heavenly Knife region broke out in a cold sweat. No wonder the yard master treated them with such an attitude. It turned out that they had almost found Su Yu's way. Just the thought of being hunted by the yard master of an all-creation's old monster made everyone's hair stand on end, including Qianfeng. Fortunately, Qianfeng had foresight. He had foreseen things in advance and resolved the misunderstanding. At the same time, their hatred for Su Yu had reached a whole new level. What a vicious scheme. We were almost all killed by him. The challengers of the Heavenly Knife region were filled with righteous indignation. Su Yu's treacherous scheme had incurred the wrath of both men and gods. "Yard master, this man is cunning and cunning. You can't trust him." Qianfeng clenched his teeth and cupped his fists. His heart was full of remorse. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have allowed the Book of Yang to be stolen for the sake of women. The yard master listened to the actions of the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region and said slowly, "I understand." Right at that moment, the 5 writing brushes dissipated and the yard master was freed. Looking around at the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region, the yard master said, "It seems like we have a common target." Qianfeng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It was said that the book yard master would kill anyone who saw it, but there were also rumors that it would never kill the innocent. "We are willing to assist the yard master in searching for this thief," Qianfeng said. The yard master nodded. "All right, I'll make an exception and cooperate with the challengers to capture this evil thief." The two parties had reached an agreement, and things were developing in the opposite direction of Su Yu. "All of you come forward with my scent. If you find this thief, just activate your scent, and I'll sense it immediately." "I'll kill this thief," the book yard master said. Upon hearing that, the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region turned pale. In that case, their whereabouts would be known by the yard master. If it wanted to harm them, it would be a piece of cake. But on second thought, if the yard master really wanted to harm them, it could do it now. Why go through so much trouble? With unease, the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region reluctantly accepted it. Qianfeng braced himself and stepped forward, saying, "I'll go first." When he came before the yard master, Qianfeng looked relaxed on the surface, but he was on his guard. The yard master emitted bursts of tricolored light and landed slowly on top of Qianfeng's head. The yard master nodded with satisfaction. "Don't worry. As long as you cooperate sincerely, I'll reward you." However, before its voice trailed off. Chapter 1004. The meteor light stream, Great Formation. 8 silvery white balls surrounded a half-blue and half-yellow ball. They descended abruptly, trapping the yard master in the center. Coincidentally, Qianfeng, who was also close at hand, was excluded. Qianfeng was shocked. He subconsciously thought it was the yard master's doing, so he retreated hastily. In the yard master's eyes, it was a premeditated move. "You challengers really can't be trusted." The yard master sneered disdainfully. "Do you think I need the help of weak challengers like you to find someone in the bookyard? I asked you to come close and be stained with my scent to test if you were up to no good." Sure enough, my guess was right. You are in cahoots with the two so-called evil thieves. Everything is as he said. Your goal is not to destroy the bookyard, but to capture me so that you can open the rumored 6th yard. The yard master had read many challengers and was familiar with deception. How could she easily believe Qianfeng's one-sided story? Pretending to cooperate was to lure the snake out of its hole and expose its fox's tail. The ambush happened at the moment when the two of them came into contact. Qianfeng, who was very close to the yard master, was spared. Would anyone believe that it was a coincidence? Qianfeng, who was flying backward, suddenly realized something was wrong. He hurriedly said, "Yard master, please calm down. The ambush was not set by us. This must be the evil thief's plan. His goal is to get rid of us through your hands. It would have been better if he hadn't said it. As soon as the words left his mouth, the yardmaster said disdainfully, "So in the eyes of you challengers, the book yardmaster is so easy to fool? If it was really an ambush set by the evil thief, why didn't he ambush you too? You are the biggest threat to them, aren't you?" Qian Feng was speechless, but he knew very well that this was exactly Su Yu's goal. He could kill Qian Feng alone, but there was still Zhao Li and the huge force of more than 80 people. Su Yu's real goal was not to kill Qian Feng, but to get rid of all of them through the yardmaster. However, the yardmaster was arrogant and self-opinionated. How could she listen to Qian Feng's one-sided story? At this moment, he felt as if yellow mud had fallen into his pants. Even if it wasn't SH*T, it was still SH*T. Sensing that the book yardmaster was about to fly into a rage, Qian Feng shouted, "People of the Heavenly Knife region, retreat quickly while he's still sealed by the formation, and find senior brother to attack." Upon hearing this, the yard master sneered. "You're finally telling the truth? You took the opportunity to set up an array formation and let the stronger trial takers take action. I will not let you off." A mouthful of old blood was stuck in Qian Feng's throat, and he was almost angered to death. This idiot who thinks he's smart, he's still helping the person earn money after being sold. But the most abominable one was the guy wearing the silver mask. He hated Su Yu to the core. It was bad enough that Su Yu had alarmed the bookyard and framed the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region. But in the end, Su Yu had left a trick up his sleeve. Just when they were about to cooperate with the yardmaster, Su Yu suddenly struck and completely infuriated the suspicious yardmaster. If he didn't have such a backup plan, Su Yu would have been the one to die. But this finishing touch made it impossible for them to defend themselves. "Run!" Qian Feng shouted. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Upon seeing this, the people of the Heavenly Knife region dared not hesitate at all. They fled in terror. As for Su Yu, he couldn't care less. The yardmaster was surrounded by the meteor light stream, great formation. She stared coldly at the fleeing strong men of the Heavenly Knife region. "None of you can escape. All of you shall stay and become the tree of life." "Open!" the yardmaster bellowed. Her whole body emitted the all-creation's mighty force. The 8 silver round pearls that surrounded her were shaken off after a momentary stalemate, disappearing into the void. At the same time, the 5 scattered writing brushes on the ground were drawn into the void as well. The yardmaster stared coldly in the direction of the void. "I'll settle the score with the 2 of you at the end." When she finished speaking, she spun around and disappeared into the void, chasing after the people of the Heavenly Knife region. In the distance, a large crack in the void appeared around Su Yu's body. The 8 silver pearls, together with the underworld pearl and the compressed version of the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation, returned to his side. Before Lu Chuyi could see what the 5 writing brushes were, Su Yu retrieved them. "Things are developing as expected. We're safe for the time being. As long as we leave the flower yard before the yardmaster returns, we'll be safe." Su Yu's lips curled into a smile. Although Lu Chuyi didn't see what had happened, the oppression from the bookyard master had weakened considerably. She knew that Su Yu's goal had been achieved. Looking into Su Yu's eyes, Lu Chuyi's pretty face showed some respect. "There's no need to leave the flower yard. As long as we meet up with Brother Taishu, it won't matter even if the yardmaster catches up with us," Lu Chuyi said. "Gu Taishu." A murderous glint flashed across Su Yu's eyes. Nodding slightly, Su Yu said, "I'll escort you there." With Lu Chuyi's injuries, any 8th grade almighty would be life-threatening. Before meeting up with Gu Taishu, she needed someone to escort her. Great. Lu Chuyi was grateful. She immediately sensed Gu Taishu's direction. After a while, she opened her eyes and pointed to the north. The north should be in the direction of the martial yard. Brother Taishu is in the martial yard. At the mention of the martial yard, Lu Chuyi's bright eyes dimmed. The martial yard was the gathering place for the challengers of the supreme heavenly demon faction. There was a martial tower there, which was of great benefit to the challengers of the Heavenly Demon faction. The students of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction spent most of their time in the Martial Tower. Gu Taishu was in the Martial Yard, so he was probably near the Martial Tower. Or rather, he was with the demonic lady of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction, so you didn't notice the strange look on her face. He looked to the north and leaped into the air. 3 days later, the periphery of the bookyard was filled with pitch-black trees that were only 200 feet thick. It wouldn't be long before they reached the edge of the bookyard. I've sensed Brother Taishu's aura. He's nearby. Lu Chuyi's pretty face broke into a soul-stirring smile. He was originally in the Martial Tower of the Martial Yard. There could only be one explanation for his appearance here. He had received a distress message from the escaped Purple Cloud Palace and followed Lu Chuyi's aura to come to their rescue. This was why Lu Chuyi was gratified and even excited. Gu Taishu was still affectionate and loyal to her. Had he come? Suyu looked at Lu Chuyi and thought for a moment. He said, "Miss Lu, if one day Gu Taishu betrays the Purple Cloud Palace, what will you do?" Lu Chuyi's smile faded, and she stared at Suyu in surprise. "Why do you ask?" He could tell that she was a little unhappy, because Suyu had questioned the person she loved the most in her heart. "It's just a hypothesis," Suyu said. Looking at Lu Chuyi's unhappy expression, a trace of pity welled up in the depths of his heart. Lu Chuyi said expressionlessly, "My heart belongs only to him. If he betrays the Purple Cloud Palace, I will follow him without regret." Not regretting even in death. Suyu sighed inwardly. He believed that Lu Chuyi would do what she said. In fact, she had already done it once. She would rather die to obtain the Book of Yang for Gu Taishu than lose her chastity. She loved Gu Taishu more than her own life. In a trance, Suyu seemed to see Xia Jingyu's figure. There was once a woman like her who loved Suyu more than her own life. "Take care, Miss Lu. We'll part ways here." Suyu turned around, stepped on the void, and flew away. Having said that, Suyu had repaid her kindness, and there was no more entanglement between them. "Leaving? Your vital energy hasn't recovered yet, and it's very dangerous for you to be alone. Why don't you come with me to see Brother Taishu? He will protect you." Lu Chuyi hurriedly caught up with him and tried to stop him. Suyu shot off into the distance without looking back. "For your own good, please don't mention my name in front of Gu Taishu." Watching Suyu's resolute departing figure disappear into the horizon, Lu Chuyi suddenly felt a sense of melancholy. There seemed to be something missing in her heart. Tears welled up in her eyes, and Lu Chuyi muttered to herself in a low voice, "I'm sorry, I didn't have the courage to know if you are Inu." Some answers had long been revealed in her heart, but she had lost the courage to face them. Before long, the space in the distance was filled. Gu Taishu's handsome and tall figure rushed over as fast as lightning. However, the anticipation in Lu Chuyi's eyes shattered inch by inch. It was because Gu Taishu wasn't the only one who had come. There was an exquisite woman in a black dress, with skin whiter than snow, and features as beautiful as a painting. Exquisite was because her face was rare in the world. It was so beautiful that it seemed like a sculpture, full of illusion. Lu Chuyi recognized that face. It was the #1 beauty of the demonic path, Han Fei. She was also the #1 person of the demonic path, one of the 4 great starry sky elites of the Jiuzhou continent. In terms of talent, no one in the central continent could compare to her, including Gu Taishu. No matter in which aspect, Lu Chuyi couldn't compare to her. The two of them descended rapidly, stepping on the clouds of the 9 heavens. Lu Chuyi restrained the emotions in her eyes and walked forward with a happy expression. She said, "Brother Taishu, you're here." Gu Taishu landed, nodded, and said immediately, "Is the Book of Yang still in your hands?" Hearing this, Lu Chuyi felt a stabbing pain in her heart. Shouldn't he be most concerned about her safety? It turned out that the person he had come to rescue wasn't her, but the Book of Yang. Shaking her head bitterly, Lu Chuyi suppressed the sadness in her heart and said, "The Book of Yang was taken by Qian Feng of the Heavenly Knife region. Chuyi was useless and didn't look after the Book of Yang." Disappointment and anger flashed across Gu Taishu's face. He was disappointed that the Book of Yang was lost. He was angry that the Book of Yang was lost by Lu Chui. Feier, we're late. The Book of Yang has been taken. Gu Taishu turned his head and said to Han Fei. Han Fei shook her head indifferently. Find the heavenly knife region and get it back. Her eyes sized Lu Chui up and down, and she said, Is she your fiancée? Gu Taishu smiled. It was arranged by the faction. As a disciple, I can't do anything about it. Hearing this, Lu Chui's heart trembled, and she looked at Gu Taishu in disbelief. Yes, there was the matchmaking of the elders and even the leader of the faction, but before that, weren't they already in love with each other? Was the meticulous care and concern of the elders and the leader of the faction also the arrangement? Her heart felt as if it had been stabbed by a knife, and it was bleeding. Han Fei nodded her snow-white chin and withdrew her gaze, as if she had lost interest in Lu Chui. Let's go back to the Martial Tower. I believe the Heavenly Knife region will also gather at the Martial Tower. This year's Martial Tower is a little different from the past. They must have received the news and will gather here. When the time comes, I'll ask for the Book of Yang and the Book of Yin to read. Gu Taishu said, All right, I'm willing to help Feier. However, Feier, you should leave first. I have something to tell Lu Chui, Gu Taishu said. Han Fei didn't even look at Lu Chui. She flew in the direction of the Martial Tower. After she left, the smile on Gu Taishu's face disappeared. He put his hands behind his back and looked at Lu Chui indifferently. He said, They reported that you had been subdued by the Heavenly Knife region and that you were seriously injured. Can you tell me how you escaped back? I heard that Qian Feng wanted to lay his hands on you. In other words, Lu Chui had probably used her innocence in exchange for her life. Right now, she might already have a dirty body. Sensing Gu Taishu's questioning gaze, Lu Chui was still afraid that he would misunderstand, despite her discomfort. She hurriedly said, Don't misunderstand. I was rescued by someone. Qian Feng didn't succeed. Brother Taishu, you know me well. I won't lie to you. There was a pleading look on her face. Is that so? Gu Taishu's expression softened a little, and a smile appeared on his face. He flew down and comforted her. Don't be afraid. I was just worried that you would be bullied. It's good that you're fine. By the way, where's the person who saved you? Why haven't I seen him? I haven't had the time to thank him for saving me. Gu Taishu's tenderness made Lu Chui feel as if she had been pardoned. She cherished his gentleness very much. She said, The benefactor doesn't want to reveal his name. He is left on his own. She hadn't forgotten Gu Taishu's words. Don't tell anyone about his existence. Gu Taishu frowned, but with his understanding of Lu Chui, he knew that she wouldn't lie. He believed that Qian Feng hadn't succeeded. Chui, don't take the matter between me and Han Fei to heart. Seeing your brother's kindness to her was arranged by the faction. His purpose was to befriend the supreme heavenly demon faction and gain some benefits from them. My feelings for you have never changed. Lu Chui's pretty face blushed, and a sweet smile bloomed like a spring flower. Is that true, Brother Taishu? Gu Taishu smiled gently. Of course it's true. He stretched out his arm, intending to pull Lu Chui into his arms naturally. But Lu Chui quietly moved away. She lowered her head and said shyly, Brother Taishu, don't do this. A hint of annoyance flashed in Gu Taishu's eyes, but he quickly concealed it. He said, Haha, senior brother was careless. Chui shouldn't have contact with the opposite sex before her cultivation is consummated. Lu Chui's body stiffened imperceptibly. Don't blame yourself, Brother Taishu. After thinking for a while, Gu Taishu's eyes flashed. Chui, I wonder which level of your cultivation of the cultivation of the cultivation of the cultivation of the technique? When can you reach the consummate level? Upon hearing this, a hint of panic flashed in Lu Chui's eyes. No, not much. I'm at the consummate level of the second level. I'm still one level away from the final consummate level. 3 years ago, you reached the consummate level of the second level. It's been 3 years, and you've only succeeded in cultivating one level? Gu Taishu frowned. He hadn't touched Lu Chui, the goddess, because he was fulfilling the faction's promise. Lu Chui was cultivating a top-notch cultivation method passed down by the Purple Cloud Palace, the cultivation method of the Purple Cloud Palace. Its level was unknown, but it was extremely powerful. Only women with pure bodies could cultivate it, and they couldn't touch the opposite sex during the cultivation. Once the taboo was violated, the cultivation method would regress, and the cultivation difficulty would increase several times. It was almost equivalent to wasting all the previous efforts. Gu Taishu was wary of the faction's rules. Although he had wanted to meddle in it many times, he had to suppress his impulse. The cultivation of the Purple Cloud Palace gets harder as it progresses. Lu Chuyi's heart was pounding. Gu Taishu made a sound of acknowledgement and didn't take it to heart. Cultivate in peace, senior brother. There's no hurry. Okay, Lu Chuyi said softly, her voice as soft as a mosquito's. In the martial tower of the martial yard, many people who have obtained destinies have appeared. All the influences have received the news and are gathering in the martial yard, Gu Taishu said. You should go in that direction first. You'll catch up with Han Fei soon, and she'll take you there. Lu Chuyi said, What about you, senior brother? Gu Taishu chuckled. I still have some matters to attend to, and I'll catch up with you soon. Lu Chuyi thought about it and flew away. Hurry up, senior brother. Nodding lightly, Gu Taishu watched Lu Chuyi leave. His face darkened, and he stared coldly in the direction where Su Yu had left. Hiding your identity after saving Lu Chuyi, humph. Do you think I'll believe you? Gu Taishu was concerned about Lu Chuyi's savior. If he hadn't verified it himself, he wouldn't have been able to get over it. Saving someone's life, but not expecting anything in return. Who would believe that there was nothing fishy about it? Either Lu Chuyi was hiding something, or his savior was up to no good. The latter was most likely. Perhaps his filthy body had already possessed Lu Chuyi, and she was unaware of it. Chapter 1005. After Su Yu bid farewell to Lu Chuyi, he walked toward the edge of the book garden. The threat of the book garden master was still there. As long as he did not leave the book garden, he would not be safe. After another half a day, Su Yu had reached the edge of the forest. He was surrounded by trees that were about 100 feet tall, and he could faintly see the steep mountain ranges in the distance. On those mountains, one could vaguely see broken swords and broken blades stuck straight into the ground. Traces of sharp aura reverberated in the mountains. Is that the martial yard? Su Yu muttered to himself. The flower garden and the book garden had already been to the 5 great gardens. The former had obtained the garden master and the honey of 100 flowers, while the latter had obtained Mo Jidao's Book of Yang. Their gains were not to be belittled. He wondered if there was anything special about the martial garden. With a flash of his eyes, Su Yu strode toward the martial yard. But at this moment, he subconsciously turned his head to look. A trace of remnant flame slowly dissipated in the forest, leaving behind a blazing aura. Su Yu, who possessed the magical space ability, could feel the faintly discernible space energy reverberating. Who is it? Su Yu was on guard. Just now, someone tore the void from behind him without making a sound. If not for his sensitivity to space, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. Could it be the book garden's book garden master? Su Yu pondered for a moment, then shook his head slightly in denial. If it were the bookyard master, she would have struck long ago and not sneakily. Being followed by a mysterious person who could travel through the void, Su Yu's eyes became more serious. When did that person start following him? What was he trying to do? With caution, Su Yu walked quickly toward the martial yard. But at this moment, a piercingly cold aura filled with boundless killing intent shot over from afar. Su Yu turned around and looked at him again, killing intent appearing between his brows. Gu Taishu. Unexpectedly, he actually caught up. Gu Taishu also noticed Su Yu's presence from afar, and his handsome face immediately became gloomy. He had imagined who had saved Lu Chuyi, but he had never imagined that it would be Su Yu, that ant from the Jinlong continent. In mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, Lu Chuyi had treated this ant in a special way, and he seemed to have an indescribable friendship with Lu Chuyi. He had seen all this with his own eyes. As he recalled how Lu Chuyi had deliberately concealed the fact that the person who had saved her was Su Yu, Gu Taishu felt like he had been deceived. Anyone could imagine what it meant for their own woman to hide the ambiguous relationship between them from her fiancé. Yuan, come on. Yes, you. Gu Taishu flew over, his eyes filled with rage. How could Suyu have known that his good intentions for Lu Chuyi's sake would cause Gu Taishu to misunderstand him even more? As he stared at Gu Taishu, Suyu suppressed his desire to kill him. Firstly, he did not have absolute confidence that he could kill Gu Taishu, especially after witnessing Gu Taishu's peak pure divine decree. His strength was unfathomable. Secondly, his true chi had yet to recover, and his strength had yet to reach its peak. Even though the three of them were at their peak, they were not willing to waste time here. If they wanted to kill him, they would have plenty of chances to leave the glittering Jewel Wonderland. Why was there a need to rush? The glittering Jewel Wonderland opened once every 100 years, and it wasn't used for fighting. Gu Taishu was also aware of this. If it were any other trial taker, he would have subdued him and interrogated him severely. But Suyu was someone he knew. A guy who had killed a being like Xue Di with his own hands must have some unknown, terrifying tricks up his sleeve. He did not want to fight Suyu to the death now. Once he had gathered enough opportunities in the glittering Jewel Wonderland and reached the All Creations level, would he still be afraid of not being able to kill Suyu? Their gazes collided in the air, causing intense sparks to fly. Powerful, murderous intents surrounded each other, causing the pitch-black forest around them to wither rapidly and turn into nothingness. The mountain rock between them crumbled with a loud crash, and a dull thunderclap erupted. I came to the Wonderland this time to look for the last drop of the ancient spiritual beast blood. Once I find it, it will be your doomsday. Gu Taishu pointed at Suyu from afar, his murderous intent thick. He had reached the peak of the 9th grade Almighty a long time ago. If he wanted to, it wouldn't be difficult for him to enter the All Creations level. However, he had suppressed his cultivation because he was not going to break through to the ordinary All Creations level. Instead, he was going to refine a 9-fairy elixir and complete the complete ancient spiritual body of the 9 transformations of real spirit. Once he succeeded, he would rarely meet a worthy opponent in the All Creations level. Even Mo Tianxian, who was known as the first person below the mortal fairies, might not be his match. By then, on the Jiuzhou continent, unless the 9 great prefectures' kings and the Duanxing Cliff Master protected him, no one would be able to save him. Whose doomsday is it? You'll find out the moment you close your eyes. So you said indifferently. Both of them were brimming with murderous intents, each with a firm determination to kill the other. At that moment, a cold smile suddenly spread across the void. Huh, why don't you two die together? The voice was hollow and overlapping, sounding very mysterious. Who else could it be but the Bookyard Master? The sound of space tearing reverberated above their heads, and a book shrouded in black, white, and blue lights broke through the air. The Bookyard Master. Suyu's eyes turned cold. It had been a few days, but it was still easily found. The people of the Heavenly Knife region must have suffered heavy casualties. After being hunted by the Bookyard Master for so long, those who could escape from the Bookyard could not be more than 5. Gu Taishu put his hands behind his back and looked over coldly. Who are you? Do you have the right to interrupt when we are talking? Get lost. The Bookyard Master had no idea of Gu Taishu's depth. She sneered mockingly. Ignorant challenger. How dare you be so arrogant in my territory? I just want to take his life. Fine, since I've started killing, I'll send you on your way too. When she finished, the magnificent All Creations' mighty force pressed down like a heavenly curtain, enveloping them. Upon hearing that, Gu Taishu glanced at Suyu and sneered contemptuously. Take his life? I think you've stayed in the glittering Jewel Wonderland for too long and are a frog in a well. A mere stage 1, All Creations dares to threaten to take his life? It was not that Gu Taishu was flattering Suyu, but it was the truth that he knew. If Suyu really wanted to kill the Bookyard Master, it would be a piece of cake. At the same time, he was unwilling to admit that Suyu, whom he regarded as his mortal enemy, was a small, insignificant character in the eyes of others. Wouldn't that weaken his reputation? The Bookyard Master was stunned. She could vaguely sense Gu Taishu's power, but Suyu was just a 9th grade fairy, wasn't he? Swaying her body slightly, the book yard master sneered. You challengers are still so fond of flaunting your power. Do you really think I'll fall for your tricks? When she finished, the all creation's mighty force condensed into a colossal phantom 1,000 feet wide, which came crashing down. The target was none other than Gu Taishu. Gu Taishu's face was expressionless, his eyes full of contempt. You overestimate yourself. Gu Taishu's body emitted 9 bright rays of light, which seemed to be 9 major acupoints. The purple light on his right arm was especially bright. He clenched his right fist, which was filled with purple light. With one hand behind his back, he punched toward the sky. Boom! The phantom of the giant book seemed majestic, but it was shattered into several halves by Gu Taishu's punch. The remnant force of the punch surged toward the book yard master, who was surrounded by a radiant tricolored glow to protect herself. With a loud bang, the tricolored rays of light shattered as well. The book garden master's true form was sent flying backward from the impact. Her stubborn and self-opinionated tone was now filled with astonishment. This punch. No, it's your physique. The ancient body of 9 spirits. How could it be? How could the bloodline of an upper-class race appear in your body? The book yard master's tone was full of shock. Gu Taishu said contemptuously, "You're nothing more than this." As he spoke, he casually raised his fist again and blasted it toward her. With a shrill scream, the book yard master was sent flying into the clouds. Her body was damaged, as if she had suffered a very serious injury. Then, Gu Taishu rolled up his sleeves and pulled the book yard master over. He sneered. Rumor has it that the 6th yard can be opened when all 5 yard masters are gathered. I wonder if the other yard masters have also been captured. With a flip of his palm, he had severely injured the All Creation's yard master and captured her alive. It had only taken a moment. Witnessing the whole process, Su Yu's heart was filled with awe. This was probably just the surface of Gu Taishu's strength. However, right at that moment, Su Yu's eyes suddenly shot toward Gu Taishu's back like lightning. A crack in the void appeared behind him, and a tender, fair hand reached out from the crack abruptly, grabbing the book yard master in Gu Taishu's palm. Gu Taishu raised his eyebrows. Come out. His right hand gripped the book yard master tightly and abruptly exerted force to pull out. A delicate cry was immediately heard from the crack in the void. Accompanied by the shrill cry of a phoenix, a large mass of raging flames flew out from the crack. So you turned his eyes and fixed his gaze on it. It was a sweet and adorable little girl, stepping on a flaming phoenix who had been forcibly pulled out from the crack in the void by Gu Taishu. The sweet girl was calm in the face of danger, and her right hand, which had been grabbed, suddenly surged with orange flames. Gu Taishu sensed the anomaly in his palm and immediately let go. The sweet girl was freed, and she somersaulted continuously, stepping on the fire phoenix and flying out of the crack in the void. She dodged 1,000 feet away from Gu Taishu and stared at the book yard master in his hand from afar. The sweet girl was no more than 18 years old. Her skin was delicate and smooth, flawless, and her facial features were delicate and adorable. She wasn't exactly beautiful, but she had the innocence and sweetness of a leading girl, which was exceptionally endearing. However, if one were to neglect her strength and the fire phoenix beneath her feet, it would be equivalent to having one foot in the king of hell. Gu Taishu's cultivation was at the peak of the 9th grade almighty, but the hints of danger emanating from his body indicated that things weren't as simple as they seemed. The fire phoenix beneath his feet was an all creation's demonic beast comparable to the book yard master, and it was extremely ferocious. Gu Taishu looked at his palm, which had a trace of a scorch mark left on it. There was a crystal-like crystal fragment embedded in his palm. Grass of crystallization? Gu Taishu's face turned solemn, and the purple energy on his palm swept past, shaking off all the grass of crystallization before it could reproduce. Raising his head to gaze at the pure and sweet girl, Gu Taishu's expression became much more solemn. Are you the second lady, Dongfang Tianfeng? Dongfang Tianfeng? Su Yu found her unfamiliar, as he had never heard of this woman's name. However, There was no doubt that the mysterious person who had been stalking Su Yu just now was undoubtedly this woman. To be able to exchange blows with Gu Taishu and not be at a disadvantage, her strength was evident. Moreover, Gu Taishu was so arrogant, yet he was afraid of this woman, which made Su Yu even more apprehensive. The young girl, who looked like a leading girl, rubbed her wrist and glared at him. "You've hurt me. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me?" Gu Taishu retracted his murderous intent. Not only was he not annoyed by her attack, but he smiled instead. "I had eyes but failed to recognize Miss Tianfeng in time. It's my fault." Looking at the book yard master in his hand, Gu Taishu said generously and heartily, "Since Miss Tianfeng wants the book yard master, I'll make it up to you and give it to you as a gift." It was obvious that Gu Taishu was currying favor with this little girl. So he was secretly surprised. He knew that Gu Taishu wasn't just a student of the Purple Cloud Palace, but he was also inextricably linked to the Central Prefecture's king. His status was far beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. For someone like him to deliberately befriend the leading girl in front of him, what kind of background did he have? If Su Yu knew that Dongfang Tianfeng came from the great eastern continent, the ancient family that had produced two mortal fairies, he wouldn't be so surprised. The number one family in the world, the great Oriental family. Moreover, Dongfang Tianfeng herself was one of the four great starry sky elites of the current generation, and her strength might not be weaker than Gu Taishu's. How could Gu Taishu not make friends with such a noble person with such outstanding talent and status? Anyway, his goal wasn't the 6th yard, but the last drop of real spirit blood. Dongfang Tianfeng pouted and raised her chin like a proud little peacock. "At least you know what's good for you." Gu Taishu smiled and walked forward to offer the book yard master to her. The first step of befriending her was considered a success. However, Dongfang Tianfeng didn't accept it. Instead, she said, "I don't want it." Gu Taishu's smile froze, and he asked, "Miss Tianfeng, don't you want the book yard master?" "No, I only want a garden yard master." Dongfang Tianfeng's bright and innocent eyes turned to Su Yu, and her eyes were shining with grievance. "The book yard master was originally mine, but you took it away from me." In fact, when he saw Gu Taishu being poisoned by the grass of crystallization, Su Yu realized that Dongfang Tianfeng was the woman from the great Oriental family mentioned by the eldest senior brother of the Heaven's Craftsman faction. Could she have been secretly following him from the garden? However, Su Yu had no intention of pleasing Dongfang Tianfeng. He wanted to keep the garden yard master to open the 6th yard and obtain sublimations. "I'm sorry, the garden yard master didn't have your name engraved on it." "How can you say that?" Su Yu was expressionless, with no intention of giving in. Dongfang Tianfeng said angrily, "If I hadn't been delayed by something and arrived a step later, the garden yard master would have been mine." Su Yu turned his head and cupped his fists. "I have matters to attend to and have no time to entertain you. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now." Secretly watching the scene, Gu Taishu's lips curled into a playful smile. He had offended the second daughter of the great Oriental family. Ha! He really didn't know his place. Dongfang Tianfeng didn't have to do anything. The glittering jewel wonderland had plenty of heaven rulers to fight for her, including the remaining 3 starry sky elites. "I know, so I'll use the book yard to exchange for it with you." Dongfang Tianfeng pouted at Gu Taishu. "What are you waiting for? Send the book yard master to me. I've never seen anyone as slow as you." The smile on Gu Taishu's lips froze, and his heart was filled with indignation. Giving the yard master that he had captured to Su Yu, what did Dongfang Tianfeng take him for? A servant that she could order around at will? It would have been fine if she had been given to someone else, but it was Su Yu. Chapter 1006. "Didn't you hear what I said?" Dongfang Tianfeng urged. There were many martial artists like Gu Taishu who wanted to curry favor with her. How could she be polite? Gu Taishu lowered his head to Su Yu and said with narrowed eyes, "Miss Tianfeng, I think we can get the flower yard master without losing the book yard master." "You mean I should join forces with you?" Dongfang Tianfeng asked. Gu Taishu stared at Su Yu and nodded slowly. He didn't want to fight Su Yu alone, but with the second daughter of the great Oriental family, there was an 80% chance of winning. The great Oriental family wouldn't let Dongfang Tianfeng take the risk. She must have powerful treasures to protect herself. Suyu could be eliminated with Dongfang Tianfeng's help. You're dreaming. However, Dongfang Tianfeng responded with contempt. If I could snatch it, would I have followed you until now? Dongfang Tianfeng said. Gu Taishu frowned. Had Dongfang Tianfeng discovered Suyu's power? Dongfang Tianfeng was forced to snatch another yardmaster in exchange. It was obvious that she was afraid of Suyu. My Fenger told me that he has several dangerous things on him. I don't think it's necessary to take the risk. Dongfang Tianfeng touched the fire phoenix under her feet. Dangerous things? Gu Taishu didn't doubt her. Cut the crap and send the book yard master over. Dongfang Tianfeng yelled. Gu Taishu's facial muscles tightened as he pondered. His priority now wasn't to win Dongfang Tianfeng's heart, but to avoid offending her. Dongfang Tianfeng didn't lack people to curry favor with. She might not appreciate his flattery, but if he didn't, he would offend her. He couldn't offend Dongfang Tianfeng like Suyu, so he could only swallow his anger. Holding the book yardmaster in his hand, he took 2 steps forward and stared at Suyu. He handed the book yardmaster over with one hand without saying a word. Suyu put his hands behind his back and said with a faint smile, Brother Gu, is this charity? Although I can't compare with your status in the blessed and heavenly lands, I won't accept handouts. Miss Tianfeng wants to exchange for your flower yardmaster. If you're sensible, let's do it now. Suyu looked surprised. Oh, so you're begging me. If that's the case, you don't look so good. Gu Taishu was annoyed, and he narrowed his eyes. Suyu, don't push your luck. Suyu flicked his sleeves and turned around. Since Brother Gu thinks that I don't know what's good for me, is there still a need to talk? Dongfang Tianfeng, who was at the side, was anxious. She glared at Gu Taishu with her almond-shaped eyes. It was obvious that she was going to teach him a lesson if the negotiation failed. Gu Taishu's heart sank when he sensed Dongfang Tianfeng's dissatisfaction. Sure enough, it was hard to leave a good impression on Dongfang Tianfeng, but it was very easy to offend her. If he had known earlier, he would have pretended not to know Dongfang Tianfeng, and he would not have been in such a passive situation. Gu Taishu regained his composure and said, Brother Su, Lady Celestial Phoenix is willing to exchange the flower yardmaster for the book yardmaster. Brother Su, please give up your treasure. Without even turning his head, Suyu calmly said, Speak louder. I can't hear you. The blue veins on Gu Taishu's forehead throbbed. He took a deep breath, raised his voice, and repeated, Brother Su, please part with your treasure. I still can't hear you. Suyu shrugged his shoulders. Gu Taishu's killing intent surged, and he resisted the urge to flick his sleeves and leave. For the last time, he used his genuine chi to produce the sound wave technique that shook the air. Please, Brother Su, part with your treasure. Did you hear me? Gu Taishu's face was gloomy. Suyu finally came back to his senses and picked his ears. Yes, I finally heard you. Then, bring me the flower yardmaster. Gu Taishu snorted. Suyu spread his hands. I didn't say I wanted a trade. I'm leaving, Brother Gu. See you next time. Waving his hand, Suyu strode toward the center of the martial yard. Gu Taishu was furious. You're courting death. He had been teased again and again, but in the end, he still failed to exchange for the flower yardmaster, which finally infuriated Gu Taishu. Useless trash. Dongfang Tianfeng glared at him with her starry eyes. Give me the book yardmaster. Gu Taishu looked back coldly, his heart flickering with murderous intent. If not for the fact that he was not fully confident that he could keep Dongfang Tianfeng here, he would have struck and turned her into ashes. How many years had it been since he had suffered such humiliation? However, the reputation of the great Oriental family, the #1 family in the world, made Gu Taishu afraid to make a move. Swallowing his anger, he offered the book yardmaster with both hands. Humph, I'll do it myself. Dongfang Tianfeng grabbed the book yardmaster unceremoniously, threw down 2 extremely precious materials as compensation, and left. Gu Taishu stared in the direction in which the 2 of them had left, his murderous intent overflowing. When I've refined the 9 fairy elixir and become a complete body of 9 spirits, your great oriental family will have to show me some respect. Humph! Suyu flew toward the center of the martial yard, looking behind him from time to time. He could feel that Dongfang Tianfeng was still following him. This put Suyu in a somewhat passive position. With her around, without a safe environment, Suyu could not consume the honey of 100 flowers and cultivate his cultivation technique with 10 times the comprehension. It seemed like he needed to find a safe place. Half a day later, at the edge of the bookyard where Suyu, Gu Taishu, and Dongfang Tianfeng had appeared, a bronze-colored bull stepped out of the crack in the void, flickering in all directions. The scent of the body of 9 spirits. The bronze-colored bull sniffed the surrounding air, a hint of surprise flashing in its eyes. How could there be a person with the bloodline of a third-class race in the Jojo continent? However, it seems like only one spirit has been awakened, and it's an incomplete body. It won't be a problem, the bronze-colored bull muttered to itself. There's the scent of the student of the supreme heavenly demon faction here. It looks like he's not far away. The bronze-colored bull took a step forward and disappeared into the void. Half a day later, Suyu left the bookyard and came before a mountain curtain of mountains. There were tens of thousands of mountains, and every one of them was forged from various kinds of broken weapons. The broken weapons were oddly shaped, and many of them were extremely huge. They didn't look like weapons used by humans. Many challengers were busily searching for broken weapons with spiritual energy in the mountains, big and small. Along the way, the number of challengers seen here far exceeded the sum of the flower yard and the bookyard. Almost half of the influences had gathered in the martial yard. According to Mo Tianxian, the martial yard was located in the center of the 5 yards, and it was considered the center. Many influences would choose to gather in the martial yard, so it was not surprising that there were many people. However, it was precisely because of this that once the martial disaster broke out in the martial yard, the casualties were the most severe. Almost 40% of the challengers were eliminated immediately. The disaster of books has yet to come, and the disaster of martial arts has yet to come, Suyu thought to himself. There were still 3 days before the disaster of books broke out, and he had already read a book of life. Barring any accidents, he would definitely incur the disaster of books. Each disaster was stronger than the one before it. The disaster of flowers should be the easiest disaster to overcome, but the disaster of books might not be so easy. With some trepidation, Suyu stepped into the core of the martial yard. Almost half of the strong heaven rulers had gathered there. Figures could be seen everywhere, and it was quite lively. When he reached the center, the crowd even seemed crowded. Each mountain was occupied by different influences, and different flags were planted there. As far as the eye could see, tens of thousands of flags were fluttering, and it was quite a spectacular sight. What shocked Suyu was that among the tens of thousands of flags, he found the flag of the Red Blood Palace. After passing through 2 yards, he had finally found his own people. He walked quickly and landed on the mountain with the flag of the Red Blood Palace, but found that the tent at the top of the mountain was empty. Chapter 1007. There is no such thing as leaving a flag, but not a trace of the person. Right at this moment, a delicate shout sounded out from behind him. It's really you, Suyu Xian. When Suyu turned his head to take a look, he saw a well-maintained and well-endowed middle-aged woman standing coldly behind Suyu. She was staring at him furiously. Fairy Ling. Suyu was surprised. She was the Tinyao auction house's cabinet master and Gongsun Wuxia's aunt. Fairy Ling's face was frosty. Long time no see, how have you been? Your cultivation has improved a lot. Although it had been a long time, Fairy Ling still couldn't forget the lovesickness seed that Enmu had planted in her body and allowed Suyu to control her. Suyu smiled awkwardly and changed the topic. Fairy Ling, are you here to visit Gongsun Wuxia? How has she been these days? How are our Red Blood Palace's people? Fairy Ling replied calmly. She's fine, so you don't need to see her. But your Red Blood Palace's people aren't in a good situation. Suyu had long felt that something was amiss with the Red Blood Palace. By the way, we're the Red Blood Palace's people. What are you doing? Suyu asked. Fairy Ling furrowed her brows and was unwilling to answer, but after some thought, she said, "Even if you know, you can't help them. They've been challenged by the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region, and they're fighting each other. I heard that you stole something from the Heavenly Knife region, and they're here to settle the score." Had the Heavenly Knife region also arrived? Suyu asked, "How many people are there?" According to their estimations, they should have been almost completely annihilated by the book garden owner. 3. Including that person, that's 4, Fairy Ling said. The other 3 should be Qian Feng, Zhao Li, and the others. As for that person, who is he? How's the battle going? Suyu asked indifferently. Fairy Ling was surprised. Oh, you don't seem to be in a hurry. They're your fellow disciples. They were indeed from the same faction as Suyu, but only a few of them truly treated Suyu as one of them. Suyu had not forgotten that during the Fengyan Great Meet, during the selection process, the people from the inner sanctum had all hoped that Suyu would not enter. He would never forget that Mo Tianxian had transported Suyu to the garden alone. Now that the Red Blood Palace's people were in trouble, what reason did he have to save them? I just want to know if Bing Wuxin, Gongsun Wuxia, and Bai Shanliang are among them, Suyu said concisely. Fairy Ling smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, there are still people who I'm worried about. You don't have to worry about Gongsun Wuxia. She's in another yard. Bai Shanliang has long since left, and his whereabouts are unknown. Only Bing Wuxin is here." Suyu asked, "Where are they fighting?" Fairy Ling pointed to the center of the area surrounded by countless mountains. There was a black obsidian pagoda with 100 floors. Its entire body was made of a strange metal that flickered with a dark light. Broken weapons and broken blades were all over the tower. Among them, there was no lack of incomplete, semi-manufactured celestial artifacts. That's the Martial Tower, the most important place in the Martial Yard, and also the safest place in the glittering jewel wonderland. Fairy Ling said, "Once you enter, apart from the challengers, no other living beings can enter. The tower's solid and indestructible body is something that even a mortal fairy can't do anything to." Suyu asked, "Are you saying that they are in the tower?" Fairy Ling shook her head slightly. "The Martial Tower hasn't opened yet. There's still half a day before it opens on the night of the full moon. The people of the Red Blood Palace aren't in the Martial Tower, but in the arena set up to fight for the Martial Tower. It's on the other side of the Martial Tower." Suyu asked, "How's the battle going?" "There are only 3 or 4 people from the Heavenly Knife region. We, the Red Blood Palace, have the absolute advantage in numbers, so we shouldn't be at a disadvantage, right? Do you think the Red Blood Palace can compete with the power of a region? Moreover, they have that person keeping watch, while your Red Blood Palace's chief disciple, Bing Wuxing, has never met up with your Red Blood Palace. Even though there are only 4 of them, they still manage to inflict heavy casualties on your Red Blood Palace. Your beloved fiancé was also injured." Upon hearing that, Suyu's face showed a hint of nervousness. "Wuxin is injured?" Judging from the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region, the only one who could pose a threat to her was Qian Feng. His strength was no less than Jimu's. It was inevitable that Bing Wuxin was no match for him. "Thank you for telling me." Suyu cupped his fists and immediately flew to the other side of the Martial Tower. Fairy Ling wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. She wanted to say that Suyu wouldn't be of any help if he went over. That was the battlefield of the almighty divine masters. What can 9th grade fairy do? Why rush over and walk right into the trap? After thinking for a moment, Fairy Ling stomped her feet and sighed helplessly. "Fine, I'll just follow him and act according to the situation to save him. This way, the young Cliffmaster will owe me a favor, and it'll be much easier to bring him back to the severed fairy cliff in the future." When she finished speaking, her figure floated and approached slowly. Bypassing the majestic tower, they saw a huge mountain that had been flattened by someone on the land on the other side of the tower. The mountain was surrounded by a sea of people, and the flattened area was filled with a large number of challengers in blue robes. Judging by their attire, they were from the Red Blood Palace. There were also several challengers in different colored attire. Among them, Suyu recognized Qian Feng and Zhao Li, as well as an 8th grade almighty female challenger. Another person, dressed in light white robes, was standing outside the battlefield in a carefree manner. He was holding a pitch-black book in his hand, reading it quietly as if no one else was around. His temperament was ethereal, and he didn't seem like someone from the mortal world. It was a pity that a golden mask covered his face, and his true appearance couldn't be seen. Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. Bai Ling Tian. Back then, Jinmu had duplicated Bai Ling Tian with a drop of his essence blood, and his combat prowess was only 70% of the original. Even so, he was still extraordinarily frightening. Bing Wuxin at her peak was no match for him at all. Suyu recognized the person in an instant from the golden mask. He was the #1 person among the younger generation of the Heavenly Knife region, Bai Ling Tian. If his guess was right, the black book in his hand should be Mo Jidao's Book of Yin. All of a sudden, as if he had sensed something, Bai Ling Tian closed the Book of Yin and lifted his eyes to look at Suyu. His emerald eyes were like a pair of emerald green flowers, exceptionally dreamy and exceptionally dangerous. Gazing deeply into those emerald green eyes, Suyu glanced casually at the battlefield. Qianfeng was indeed impressive. He was fighting against 10 people alone, and yet he wasn't at a disadvantage in the slightest. Instead, he managed to injure a late-stage, almighty strongman from the Red Blood Palace from time to time. Zhao Li was known as the second strongest man in the Purple Cloud Palace. Although he was a traitor, his combat prowess was still astonishing. He was fighting Tianyu and 6th 8th grade almighty alone, and he was doing it with ease. Tianyu's face showed signs of fatigue. As for the 8th grade almighty female challenger, she was equally impressive. She was restraining Tang Ling and dozens of 7th grade almighty single-handedly. Her combat prowess was incredible, and this was the result of Bai Ling Tian's having yet to strike. If he were to strike, the situation would be completely one-sided, and there would be no suspense. Chapter 1008. Her beautiful face was like an ice lotus on a snowy mountain, attracting countless gazes. Most of the unfamiliar challengers who were watching the battle were captivated by her breathtaking beauty. She stood upright at the edge of the battle, holding a cold, long sword in her arms, her snow-like eyes watching every move on the battlefield. Around her was a piercing sword energy. The sword energy was sharp and oppressive. Although there were many who were stunned by her beauty, no one dared to approach her. Swoosh! With a leap, Suyu landed beside Bing Wuxin under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Bing Wuxin glanced at him out of the corner of her eye. A gleam of joy flashed across her pretty eyes, but her face was cold as she glared at Suyu. "Why are you only here now?" Although her tone was unfriendly, her sword energy was restrained, allowing Suyu to approach her. "There was an accident during the teleportation. I was far away from you, so I couldn't make it in time," Suyu said briefly. "Are you not joining in because of Bai Ling Tian?" Bing Wuxin stared at Bai Ling Tian with extreme vigilance. "Yes, we agreed on the condition that Bai Ling Tian and I are not to join in the battle." Bai Ling Tian's strength was unfathomable. If Bing Wuxin used the ancient spiritual body, there were only a few 9th grade almighty who could withstand it. If the two of them joined in the battle, the casualties would increase dramatically. Bai Ling Tian's strength should be above mine, but for some reason, the Heavenly Knife region suffered heavy casualties before arriving at the martial yard. Only the 4 of them were left, so Bai Ling Tian suggested that he and I not participate in the battle. His goal was to save as many challengers of the Heavenly Knife region as possible. As Bing Wuxin spoke, she looked at Suyu without blinking. "They said that it was you who snatched something from them, and it was you who caused them to suffer heavy casualties. Is this true?" Suyu frowned deeply. When he rescued Lu Chuyi and snatched the Book of Yang, he hadn't exposed his identity. At that time, there were only 2 people who knew Suyu's identity: Lu Chuyi and Gu Taishu, who arrived later. If he was not mistaken, it was Gu Taishu who sold the news that Suyu was from the Red Blood Palace to the Heavenly Knife region. Gu Taishu. Suyu glanced over coldly. From afar, he saw that the challengers of the Purple Cloud Palace were also among the onlookers. Gu Taishu stood at the forefront, and Lu Chuyi, whose face was gloomy, was beside him. He looked at Su Yu with a sneer. Their gazes collided, and a trace of killing intent burst forth. Su Yuxian. Bing Wuxin followed Su Yu's line of sight and looked at Gu Taishu and Lu Chui. Her gaze flickered back and forth before finally landing on Lu Chui. Her snowy eyes were filled with suspicion. "Are you looking at Lu Chui?" Hearing this, Su Yu retracted his gaze. "You are thinking too much. I did snatch something from the Heavenly Knife region. This matter started because of me." He stood straight to the side, with no intention of making a move. Since Bing Wuxin, the only person he cared about, was fine, why should he be a busybody? Pa! The soft sound of a book closing could be heard clearly by everyone in the noisy battlefield. Looking in the direction of the sound, the entire place suddenly became much quieter. A gentle chuckle rang out abruptly. Bai Ling Tian stood up slowly, holding Mo Jidao's Book of Yin in one hand. He looked at Su Yu with a faint smile. "Your companion is in danger. Aren't you going to help?" Su Yuxian. Bai Ling Tian's words gradually brought the intense battle to a halt. Qian Feng and the others gradually withdrew their attacks and retreated to the edge of the battlefield. Their eyes were as sharp as blades. "Su Yu, Xian." Qian Feng's eyes were bloodshot as he bellowed Su Yu's name through gritted teeth. The challengers of the Red Blood Palace had just noticed Su Yu's arrival and were furious. Incompetent fool! Tang Ling was the first to fly into a rage. At the moment, he was bathed in blood and looked battered and exhausted. He walked towards Su Yu in exasperation, bellowing as he walked, "You've implicated the faction and brought upon an undeserved disaster. Do you know your crime?" Su Yu shrugged and said to the smiling Bai Ling Tian, "You saw it for yourself. They don't necessarily regard me as companions." His words immediately infuriated the rest of the challengers of the Red Blood Palace. "Shameless. You've caused so many of our comrades to die. It's fine if you don't help, but you're standing at the side and making sarcastic remarks. We should have disregarded everything and let him fail in the Fengyun Great Assembly. How could things have ended up like this? I knew this Su Yuxian was a good-for-nothing. He was fearless because he was proficient in Mu words. I regret it." Su Yu's expression was indifferent. "Haha, you make it sound like it's all thanks to you that I can come to the glittering jewel wonderland. Besides, without me, you would have all died in the glittering jewel wonderland. You wouldn't be here today, filled with righteous indignation." Su Yu's rebuttal rendered them speechless. During the Fengyun Great Assembly, the sudden appearance of the terrifying puppet had caused Gu Taishu to flee. Without Su Yuxian, all of them would have been buried in the Purple Cloud's secret realm. "Nonsense. Even without you, the faction leader would have done it." Tang Ling strode forward, seething with rage. The old grudge had yet to be avenged, but a new one had been added. He had originally been eliminated by the Purple Cloud secret realm. In the end, the quota was less than 100, so he was listed as a candidate. "So you seem to have only just noticed Tang Ling," he said indifferently. "I suppose a loser like Senior Brother Tang was able to come to the glittering jewel wonderland because of the faction leader, right?" Tang Ling was infuriated that his wound had been reopened. "You're courting death." Swoosh! When Tang Ling was 10 steps away from Su Yu, he suddenly launched an attack. Like a meteor, he drew out a broadsword and slashed it at Su Yu's head, intending to split him in half. Bing Wuxin's clear eyes flickered with coldness as she uttered a single word, "Get lost." All of a sudden, Tang Ling felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body shuddered as he stumbled backward. Finally, he staggered and leaned backward, about to fall to the ground. At that moment, a gentle force came from behind and caught him. "Junior Sister Bing, we were teaching a junior brother a lesson. Why did you injure us?" Tianyu walked out slowly from behind Tang Ling with a sullen face. Bing Wuxin was expressionless. "Teach him a lesson? Do you think Su Yuxin could have withstood Tang Ling's sword? If that's a lesson, why don't I do the same to Tang Ling?" Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Tang Ling was obviously going to take Su Yu's life. After all, Tang Ling was an 8th-grade almighty who had made a name for himself for a long time. Su Yuxian, on the other hand, was said to be only a ninth-grade fairy. There was an insurmountable gap between their cultivation. When she finished speaking, Bing Wuxin's fingertips touched the hilt of the sword in her arms, her eyes swallowing and spitting sword energy. Tianyu sneered. Very well. I've long wanted to see what makes junior sister Wuqing value you. Just because you look exactly the same? Tangling, I'll leave Su Yuxin to you. Tianyu's murderous aura permeated the air. You don't have to be so courteous. Feel free to teach such a disciple who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. If he dares to resist, kill him. As she spoke, she clapped one of her hands, and a pair of giant golden scissors appeared. The scissors were carved with a dragon's head. Chapter 1009. Tianyu held the scissors with both hands and said disdainfully, 3 moves? You're overestimating yourself. My golden dragon scissors can cut formless souls and fragments of fairy artifacts. Let me see how you'll defeat me in 3 moves. Crack! The golden dragon scissors closed abruptly, cutting out 2 intersecting beams of golden light. Wherever the golden light passed, the space was cut into 2 pitch-black spatial cracks like a piece of cloth. Bing Wuxin's unsheathed longsword was cut into 2, a semi-manufactured fairy artifact. Qianfeng's expression turned serious. Tianyu had not used this semi-manufactured fairy artifact when she fought him. Gasps of surprise rang out from all directions. Only the top 3 disciples of a great sect, like the Red Blood Palace, had the opportunity to obtain a semi-manufactured fairy artifact for self-defense. Tianyu had one, so how could she not be envious? However, Bing Wuxin's expression was calm. She weaved a seal with both hands and said, Do you think my sword is that easy to cut? Creak! With a soft sound, the sword light that had been cut into 2 receded, revealing its true form. It was not a tangible treasure, but 2 transparent objects, formless and incorporeal. After being cut, the 2 beams of sword light fused into one and reformed into a sword that continued to slash at Tianyu, who was close at hand. Tianyu was shocked, her face filled with terror. This is the intermediate level of the path of sword, the imperishable sword body. What? The second level of the path of sword? The onlookers gasped. For any martial path, there would be an unbreakable barrier at the end of the training. Once it was broken through, one would step into another realm of the divine temple, known as the innate martial path. The innate martial path was divided into 3 great realms: the elementary, intermediate, and advanced. The 3 great realms of the path of sword were the elementary realm, and the intermediate realm was the imperishable sword body. Most geniuses stopped at the innate martial path, unable to get a glimpse of the innate martial path. Only a few with exceptional comprehension could break through the barrier and step into the first level of the innate martial path. As for the second level, only a handful of geniuses could comprehend it. At least in the Central Prefecture, there were very few who could cultivate a martial path to the second level of the innate martial path. Bing Wuxin was one of them. Bai Ling Tian couldn't help but cast a praising look at him. His pair of jade-green eyes shone with a demonic glow. In the blink of an eye, the Heaven Jade golden dragon scissors spun in front of him and turned into a golden shield. At this moment, the invisible sword light hit the golden shield. The sharp sound of metal rubbing against each other could be heard as the invisible sword light rubbed against the rotating golden dragon scissors, creating a long, fiery dragon. It was a spectacular scene. Tianyu heaved a sigh of relief and reined in her panic. A ruthless glint flickered in her eyes. The indestructible sword body is nothing more than this. Look at my golden dragon scissors. Crash! The spinning golden dragon scissors suddenly sped up. With an ear-piercing sound of friction, the shapeless sword light was deflected by the violently spinning golden scissors and flew back toward Bing Wuxin. At the same time, the golden dragon scissors split into 2 halves. Every single one of them was shaped like a golden jiao dragon, and they flew towards Bing Wuxin. Second form, semi-manufactured immortal artifact. Someone exclaimed. Semi-manufactured immortal artifacts usually had more than one ability. The more they hid their abilities, the scarier they were. That's the soul of the golden dragon, which contains the attack of a half-step all-creation expert. Even a ninth grade almighty can't withstand it. I'm afraid that beautiful lady is going to suffer. An unfamiliar challenger from an unknown region recognized the golden dragon scissors ability. Many people were worried for Bing Wuxin. Is the indestructible sword body so easily broken? Bing Wuxin's expression remained calm as she made a seal with one hand. All of a sudden, the shapeless sword light that was about to be deflected seemed to have frozen in time. From its blurry state of flying backward, it suddenly stopped 3 feet in front of her, motionless. Bing Wuxin made a seal with her jade-like finger and gently flicked the blade. All of a sudden, the shapeless sword light dissipated and turned into sparkling spots of light. The spots of light regrouped and condensed into more than one shapeless sword light that covered the entire battlefield. A rough count revealed that there were more than 1,000 of them. Every one of them was extremely swift and fierce, and they emitted powerful sword energy. For a moment, the sword energy was everywhere. It was hair-raising and exceptionally magnificent. "This is the indestructible sword body," Bing Wuxin said placidly. As soon as she finished, the surroundings seemed to tighten. The 1,000 shapeless sword lights vibrated ceaselessly, emitting a buzzing sound. Bing Wuxin, who was controlling the 1,000 swords, was like a female sword fairy. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 1,000 shapeless sword lights were activated, and like a thick layer of dark clouds, they pounced down. Interesting, the indestructible sword body. The sword is like my heart, and it will never perish. Traverse the clouds and slay the demons. Bai Ling Tian clapped his hands, a look of deep approval on his face. The power of this move was unparalleled, far surpassing Bing Wuxin's combat power in the past. So he was amazed as well. It had only been a short while, but Bing Wuxin's comprehension of the sword path had surpassed the sword heart synchronization and entered the second stage, the indestructible sword body. What? Tianyu only had time to cry out in shock before she was engulfed by the overwhelming shapeless sword lights. The 2 golden dragon scissors had no choice but to fly back to her side, circling around to defend against the densely packed sword lights. Crack, crack! Faint cracking sounds came from inside of the golden dragon scissors, as if they could not withstand the intensive attacks and were about to shatter. Tianyu turned pale with fright. She had never expected Bing Wuxin's power to be so terrifying. She was almost on par with Bing Wuxin. "Tang Ling, what are you waiting for? Capture Su Yuxian." Tianyu roared anxiously. She had forgotten her original intention of teaching Su Yu a lesson and was focused on preserving her own life. Tang Ling's eyelids twitched as he watched. He swallowed hard, feeling an unprecedented reverence for Bing Wuxin. Hearing her urging, how could Tang Ling dare to hesitate? His eyes shot towards Su Yuxian like lightning, and he sped away. Bing Wuxin's expression changed slightly, and she was about to divert her attention to deal with Tang Ling. "Wuxin, leave him to me." So he took a step forward indifferently. Bing Wuxin asked solemnly, "How long can you hold on?" So you thought about it and replied, "Probably 1 move." "1 move?" Bing Wuxin nodded slightly. "1 move should be enough. Hold on, I'll come to your rescue immediately." Among the onlookers, Fairy Ling sighed and took out an exquisite crossbow from her bosom. "You still need my help after all." Tang Ling flew to within 10 feet of Su Yu at lightning speed. He formed a claw with one hand and clawed at Su Yu's shoulder. At such a close distance, a slightly ferocious sneer appeared on his face. "At least you have some self-awareness. 1 move is enough." Seeing that the claw was about to capture Su Yu easily, the corners of Su Yu's mouth curled into a playful smile. In his chest, demonic energy suddenly tumbled, and 6 demonic dragons surged out in succession. The pure demonic energy shocked the onlookers. What a pure demonic energy! I've never seen a demonic cultivator with such a peculiar demonic energy. That doesn't seem to be any ordinary demonic energy. It's like the demonic energy of the demon clan that descended on the Jojo continent 100 years ago. No way. Demonic energy from the extraterrestrial demons? Tang Ling, who was close at hand, was stunned for a moment. When he came to his senses, the 6 demonic dragons had penetrated his chest. The 9 dragons' demon-subduing art was unleashed for the first time at the 6th stage. Tang Ling looked at his body in disbelief. It was crumbling inch by inch, and pitch-black raging flames were surging from the inside out. Tang Ling couldn't believe the outcome before his eyes. Suyu said indifferently, "You misunderstood me. When I said one move, I was talking about you." When he finished speaking, he waved his sleeves lightly. Tang Ling's body crumbled, turning into feather-sized black ashes that drifted away. This person had tried to kill him many times, and this was the end of it. Chapter 10:10. What cultivation level is he at? Suyu had killed the enemy with a single strike, which had finally caught the attention of the challengers from the other regions. When they tried to probe Suyu's cultivation level, they were all blocked by the silver mask on his face. He's an almighty challenger. The vital energy he exuded when he performed his cultivation technique was at the almighty level. He must be an almighty, someone analyzed. Nonsense. How could a martial artist below the almighty level be qualified to be recommended by the glittering jewel wonderland? The question is his real cultivation level 8 or 9? Only those who knew Suyu well knew his real cultivation level. It was only a 9th grade fairy, not even an almighty. Is he that powerful? Fairy Ling held the crossbow in her hand and stood rooted to the ground. Even she would most likely perish if she were to face the power of that strike. She remembered clearly that when she first met Suyu, he was just a little cultivator who had just entered the fairy realm. She could suppress him with a single finger. How long had it been? His strength had already reached a level that she couldn't even look up to. The change was so great that Fairy Ling had a feeling that she was hallucinating. Tianyu's pupils constricted, and she was shocked. His strength was far beyond her expectations. Tang Ling, a peak 8th grade almighty, couldn't even withstand a single strike from Suyu. She suddenly felt a sense of crisis, as if there was a dagger at her back. The other students of the inner sanctum of the Red Blood Palace turned pale with fright. Tang Ling was defeated in a single strike. Staring at Suyu, the students of the inner sanctum of the Red Blood Palace began to re-evaluate their relationship with him. "You're that strong?" Bing Wuxin was astonished. She knew that Suyu had concealed part of his strength, but in her impression, his limit was the 6th grade almighty. Suyu smiled and clapped his hands. "You should finish up on your side as soon as possible." "Humph, I don't need you to tell me that." Bing Wuxin snorted indignantly, as if she had been provoked. She pressed down with her 5 fingers. The golden dragon scissors, which was already at the end of its tether, finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a cracking sound, it was penetrated by the infinite sword light. Its spiritual light dimmed, and it shattered into countless pieces. Tianyu's spirit was connected to the semi-manufactured fairy artifact. Now that the fairy artifact was destroyed, her primordial spirit was injured. She was sent flying with a miserable groan, blood spurting from her mouth. In an instant, Tianyu and Tang Ling were dead and wounded. Su Yuxian. Tianyu stared at the dust that Tang Ling had turned into and yelled, "Your fellow disciple is in danger, yet instead of helping, you killed Tang Ling. What are your intentions? And you, Bing Wuxin, why did you destroy my immortal artifact and injure my body?" Suyu laughed disdainfully at the mention of his fellow faction members being in danger. "So, you also know that your fellow faction members are in danger? In the face of a crisis, who was the one who did not unite against the outside world, but tried to use force to suppress the internal situation and create internal strife? Senior Sister Tianyu, I don't believe that you haven't thought about this problem. If we're talking about evil intentions, we should be asking you that question." The challengers of the Heavenly Knife region were eyeing them covetously, but Tianyu put her personal hatred before the safety of her fellow faction members. Now, he was even slandering Suyu and Bing Wuxin. As for why Suyu did not intend to help the Inner Sanctum disciples, it was because of what they had done to him previously, especially Tang Ling's sinister intentions. Suyu did not take advantage of the chaos to attack them, because they were from the same faction. Tianyu gritted her teeth and shouted, "Harming your fellow disciples. You should be punished according to the law. Bewitching people with lies was an additional crime. My fellow disciples, what are you waiting for? Let's attack together and kill the traitors. I will ask the palace master for your merits." The expressions of the inner sanctum disciples of the Red Blood Palace changed slightly. Against Su Yuxian and Bing Wuxin, there were more than 40 of them, but in terms of combat power, they were no match for Su Yuxian and Bing Wuxin. Ask the palace master Mo for merits? Humph, I think she'll take your heads. Bing Wuxin sneered, creating internal strife in the face of a crisis. Haven't you seen through her intentions? Staring at Tianyu, Bing Wuxin had a faint smile on her face. When you were fighting the challengers of the Heavenly Knife region, I didn't see you using your trump card like the Golden Dragon Scissors to salvage the situation. But when you're fighting your own people, you're willing to use it. Tell me, senior sister Tianyu, are you a disciple of the Red Blood Palace or the Heavenly Knife region? Upon hearing that, the inner sanctum disciples of the Red Blood Palace were terrified. Yes. During the battle with the Heavenly Knife region, the situation had been so perilous, and Tianyu had still concealed her strength, causing the casualties to increase. But when she was dealing with Bing Wuxin, she was screaming at the top of her lungs, and every blow was fatal. Due to Tianyu's reputation in the inner sanctum disciples hadn't thought too deeply about it. But when Bing Wuxin pointed out the suspicious point, they couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Swish! Swish! One by one, the inner sanctum disciples distanced themselves from Tianyu, on high alert. Don't listen to their nonsense, Tianyu said anxiously, staring at Bing Wuxin with unquenchable hatred. But with Zhao Li of the Purple Cloud Palace as an example, no one dared to believe it. If the Heavenly Knife region could infiltrate Zhao Li, who was ranked second in the Purple Cloud Palace, why couldn't they infiltrate Tianyu? I've long suspected that there's something fishy about senior sister Tianyu. And just as I expected, an 8th grade almighty inner sanctum disciple bellowed in a deep voice. He flew behind Su Yu and Bing Wuxin, leaving the scene without a doubt. The rest of the inner sanctum disciples pondered for a moment and made a decision easily. Firstly, Bing Wuxin had just demonstrated a shocking level of swordsmanship, and her strength was astonishing. Naturally, she had the potential to be a backer. Secondly, Tianyu was really suspicious, and continuing to associate with her would be extremely dangerous. After a while, all the inner sanctum disciples had gathered behind Su Yu and Bing Wuxin, leaving Tianyu alone. Tianyu was enraged. She swept her cold gaze over all the inner sanctum disciples who had betrayed her. Her eyes were exceptionally cold, but hints of a creepy sneer adorned her face. Consider yourselves lucky. Swish! Tianyu's figure flickered, turning into a shadow of light and flying behind Bai Ling Tian. Bai Ling Tian had a faint smile on his lips. He turned around and said in a gentle voice, "You've worked hard for so many years." Tianyu's face was full of respect. Tianyu is willing to give her all for the faction. The scene caused an uproar among the crowd. What? She really is a traitor of the Red Blood Palace. Zhao Li of the Purple Cloud Palace, Tianyu of the Red Blood Palace. How many people has the Heavenly Knife region planted in the blessed and heavenly lands all these years? The insiders were secretly amazed. The inner sanctum disciples behind Su Yu still had lingering fear in their hearts. They were thankful that they had made the right choice. More importantly, they were thankful that Su Yu had rushed back in time and accidentally exposed Tianyu's foxtail. Otherwise, with Tianyu as a mole, they would have been devoured by the Heavenly Knife region. I really didn't expect you to really be a traitor. Bing Wuxin sighed deeply. She had intended to sound out Tianyu, but she had found out something earth-shattering. Tianyu snorted. What's there to sigh about? A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. The Heavenly Knife region defies the general trend of the universe, and will certainly be crushed by it. I just realized it a day earlier than all of you. Bing Wuxin, you are extraordinarily talented. I advise you to leave the Red Blood Palace as soon as possible. I believe you will have a better future. Bing Wuxin replied indifferently. Why should I be worried about my future because of a traitor? You'd better worry about yourself, and whether you can leave the glittering jewel wonderland. Puffed. A long sneer came from Qian Feng's mouth. Chapter 10:11. Bing Wuxin raised her hand and beckoned, and 1,000 sword lights whirled in the sky in unison. Su Yuxian, I'm afraid that it's not up to you anymore. Fight with me. Bing Wuxin looked at Su Yu. Regardless of whether Su Yu attacked or not, the Heavenly Knife region would never let Su Yu off. Haha, it is everyone's responsibility to kill traitors, and I am no exception. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and laughed, glancing at the other party. I like it the most when you have more people to bully me. Is that so? Bai Ling Tian, who had been watching from the sidelines, asked with a smile. Su Yu looked at him and asked with a smile, Why? Do you plan to fight them yourself? If it were him, Su Yu would only have a chance of winning if he went all out. Of course not. I'm only interested in the 4 great starry sky geniuses. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't interfere too much in the battle between you all. Bai Ling Tian maintained his faint smile, elegant and otherworldly. If I don't make a move, someone else will. Bai Ling Tian's gaze pierced through the crowd and shot towards a mountain in the distance. Is that so? Han Fei! Han Fei! The crowd burst into an uproar. There was probably no one who did not know who Han Fei was. The chief disciple of the supreme heavenly demon sect, Han Fei. The peerless starry sky genius that appeared once in 1,000 years, the saintess of the demonic sect that stood above the heroes of the demonic Tao. A month ago, in the land of the extreme north, the world was dark. A pitch-black, blazing sun enveloped the boundless earth, competing with the sun and moon in splendor. The black sun had risen because of the demon sect's saintess. She was the first peerless demoness to master the sky devil black sun after the founding master of the supreme heavenly demon faction. His strength was far beyond the level of a divine master. It was even rumored that the 10 great demon elders of the supreme heavenly demon sect had all been defeated by him. As for the 10 great demon elders, the first-ranked demon elder had long since reached the 3rd stage all creations level. The mountain where the supreme heavenly demon sect was stationed was silent for a moment. Then, the sound of fluttering sleeves was heard. A beautiful woman with skin as fair as snow, white teeth, and bright eyes, dressed in a long black gauze dress, hovered in the air. Looking at this woman, a sense of amazement bloomed in everyone's hearts. Amazement flickered in Su Yu's eyes. This woman's beauty wasn't any less than Bing Wuxin's. The only difference was that Han Fei was sexier and contained a faint natural charm, which was the complete opposite of Bing Wuxin's cold elegance. Han Fei's appearance caused an uproar. One of the 4 great starry sky prodigies, Han Fei. She actually showed herself. Bai Ling Tian looked at Han Fei with a smile. It's been 3 years since we parted ways at the Starry Sky Summit. How have you been? Han Fei cast an indifferent glance at Bai Ling Tian. Then, she shifted her gaze to Su Yu and scrutinized him carefully. Even though he was ignored, Bai Ling Tian was not annoyed. Instead, he smiled casually. What's your name? Han Fei looked down at Su Yu quietly. The entire audience was silent, extremely quiet. The challengers from all over the mainland were all staring at Su Yuxian without blinking. To be asked for his name by a starry sky prodigy in public was an indescribable honor. Gu Taishu squinted his eyes, and a cold light flickered in them. What do you want to do? Bing Wuxin's expression became grave, and she stood in front of Su Yu to block him. Han Fei said indifferently, I'm asking him, not you. Bing Wuxin said coldly, but if you want to touch him, you'll have to ask me first. Han Fei said faintly, You? That's right, me. Because I'm his fiancé. Bing Wuxin said frankly, not caring that there were so many people present. Upon hearing that, Lu Chui shuddered for some unknown reason. Staring at the silver-masked Su Yu, Lu Chui felt as if her heart had been pierced by something. Was he already engaged to Bing Wuxin? A glint of dullness covered her eyes. Then I'll change the question, Han Fei said. Where does your demonic energy come from? Suyu thought to himself. Sure enough, she was here for the demonic energy. The pure demonic energy he had displayed just now had caught the attention of the supreme heavenly demon faction. As the #1 demonic path in Jiuzhou, the supreme heavenly demon faction had always prided itself on being the orthodox demonic path. The demonic energy they cultivated was completely different from other demonic factions and was usually very pure. However, Suyu's demonic energy was even purer than the demonic energy of the people of the supreme heavenly demon faction. Is there a need for me to tell you? Suyu crossed his arms before his chest, fearless, as if the words starry sky prodigy meant nothing to him. The challengers from the foreign regions had extremely interesting expressions on their faces. How dare you speak to the starry sky prodigies like that? You're courting death. Starry sky prodigy, the title of the 4 strongest prodigies of the current generation of the continent. Which one of them wouldn't become an absolute powerhouse of the continent in the future? The previous 9 great prefectures' kings were all starry sky geniuses when they were young. Being too rigid is easy to break. With such a character, sooner or later, it will bring about a fatal disaster. Han Fei frowned. She did not expect to be rejected so cleanly. Bai Lingtian, who was at the side, had a faint smile on his face. It was as if everything was developing as he had expected. Are you sure you want me to attack? Han Fei cast an indifferent glance at the inner sanctum students of the Red Blood Palace behind Suyu. Anyone who was swept by it felt as if they'd fallen into an ice house, and their entire bodies felt cold. That gaze made them feel like they were facing Mo Tianxian. There was only one word in everyone's mind, demoness. Just as the rumors said, she was an extremely terrifying demoness. Gu Taishu sneered. Gu Taishu still had lingering fears about Han Fei's fearsomeness. In a real fight, it would be difficult for Gu Taishu to withstand 10 moves from Han Fei. If he was already in such a state, then Suyu wouldn't be any better. Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly. This woman was stronger than Bai Lingtian, but Suyu still had several ways to defeat her. It was just that the price of sacrifice was too great. Sister Han Fei, why don't you let Feng'er have a go at you? A delicate voice reverberated from the 9 heavens. With a whooshing sound, a crack appeared in the sky, and a fire phoenix with a terrifying aura flew out from it. Sitting on it was an innocent and adorable young girl, who looked like a little girl leading a family. Her fair feet were bare and swaying incessantly. Han Fei looked up and frowned. Dongfang Tianfeng, are you standing up for them? Dongfang Tianfeng's appearance caused another uproar. The greatest family in the world, the great Oriental family. What, even she's here? This. 2 of the 4 great starry sky geniuses have appeared at the same time. What a spectacle. Most of the martial artists would never have the chance to witness a starry sky genius in their lifetime. Now that 2 of them had appeared at the same time, many challengers were extremely excited. Dongfang Tianfeng leaped down from the fire phoenix and landed beside Suyu gracefully like a feather. She giggled. Feng'er doesn't care if Sister Han Fei bullies others, but if you want to bully him, you'll have to go through me first, okay? Han Fei looked at Suyu in surprise. Who is he to you? Is he worth your time? The corners of Suyu's mouth twitched slightly. This little girl was still haunting him, asking for the flower yardmaster. She was even willing to fight for him. However, what happened next made Suyu's facial muscles stiffen. Dongfang Tianfeng's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Chapter 10:12. Suyu wasn't the only one who was stunned. Everyone present was stunned. I didn't hear it wrong, did I? The second daughter of the great Oriental family has been possessed? I hope I heard it wrong, too. Swish! 2 ice-cold gazes pierced into Suyu's body, as if they were piercing through a mountain. You'd better explain yourself. Bing Wuxin smiled, beautiful and cold. Many male trial-takers from unfamiliar regions also shot jealous glances at him. The veins on Suyu's forehead throbbed. Will you die if you didn't explain? Cough, cough. Everyone has misunderstood. Listen to me, Miss Dongfang actually said. Suyu explained awkwardly. What's there to explain? Dongfang Tianfeng blinked her big, expressive eyes, giving off a sense of innocence. I, Dongfang Tianfeng, dare to take responsibility for what I've done. My people have indeed been occupied by Su Yuxian. From now on, whoever makes an enemy of Su Yuxian will be my enemy. Wow. All of a sudden, there was an uproar. Most people were skeptical. The second daughter of the great Oriental family had been possessed by a wild boy of unknown origin. It was inconceivable no matter how they thought about it. The reputation of the great Oriental family aside, with Dongfang Tianfeng's strength as a starry sky elite, there were only two people who could take her chastity by force. How could she have been possessed so inexplicably? It was only when Dongfang Tianfeng openly confirmed the truth that she had already committed herself to Su Yu and was willing to stand by his side against a common enemy that their hopes were dashed. Impossible. Where did this wild man come from? How could he deserve Miss Tianfeng's favor? Su Yuxian. Who is he? When did Su Yu rise from a nameless wild boy to a mysterious figure in the limelight? His attention was second only to the four great starry sky elites. Su Yu sighed silently and stared at Dongfang Tianfeng. He really didn't know if this little girl did it on purpose or if she was really that innocent. At this point, Su Yu couldn't explain himself, so he didn't bother to. Clang! Bing Wuxin waved her hand, and the 1,000 swords returned to their sheaths. With her here, you don't need me to protect you anymore. Bing Wuxin's expression was indifferent as usual, but her jade-like palm clenched the hilt of the sword tightly, revealing her inner turmoil. Gongsun Wuxia, her potential love rival, had yet to be dealt with, and now another starry sky genius had appeared to compete for it. A gloomy feeling of vomiting blood welled up in his heart. Back then, she had decided to marry Su Yu out of convenience. At that time, Su Yu had lost all his popularity, and Gongsun Wuxia hated him even more. In the end, not long after, Gongsun Wuxia, as if she was possessed, uncharacteristically joined the competition. Now, a specious starry sky prodigy jumped out to fight for her affections in public. Bing Wuxin was inexplicably involved in the plot of many women fighting over a man, and she even wanted to kill Su Yu with her sword. It's not what you think it is. The others could ignore it, but Bing Wuxin needed to explain. Crack! However, a layer of ice appeared around Bing Wuxin, isolating her from the outside world. It was obvious that she didn't want to listen to Su Yu's explanation. That's strange. Your fiancé seems to be angry. Dongfang Tianfeng walked over with an innocent look on her face, blinking her big eyes. This girl was definitely doing it on purpose. Looking at her harmless face, Su Yu finally understood how cunning this woman was. Fake two-faced lowly. Su Yu cursed in a low voice. Dongfang Tianfeng opened her big bright eyes and tilted her head. Puzzled, she asked, "What did you say? You want to take responsibility for me?" A hint of wine-red shyness crept up her cheeks. Her girlish demeanor was unusually delicate. Poof! Su Yu almost spouted a mouthful of blood. This woman. Hey, are you done showing off your affection? Aren't you afraid of dying a quick death? That's right. It's fine if you're affectionate, but how dare you come out and show off? I'll contribute a torch. Leave the firewood to me. I'm short of money, so I'll contribute a few thousand caddies of kerosene. Su Yu was speechless. The crowd was agitated, as if Su Yu's acquisition of Dongfang Tianfeng had triggered public outrage. Haha, if that's the case, won't the battle between us be quite exciting? Bai Ling Tian had a gentle smile on his face. The battle between the Red Blood Palace and the Heavenly Knife region had escalated to the level of two starry sky prodigies. Both women were starry sky prodigies. 4 years ago, Han Fei was ranked third among the 4 starry sky prodigies, and Dongfang Tianfeng was fourth. Now that 4 years had passed, the strength of both parties was unknown. Many people were looking forward to their battle. You're no match for me. If you don't want to get hurt, leave as soon as possible. Han Fei cast an indifferent glance at Dongfang Tianfeng. Dongfang Tianfeng's face was innocent and innocent. Haha. Feng'er has long wanted to compete with Sister Fei'er again. Feng'er wasn't satisfied with the battle back then. Wisps of fighting spirit were burning in Dongfang Tianfeng's eyes. Han Fei cast a glance at Su Yu and said dispassionately, Dongfang Tianfeng, do you want to compete with me for the demonic energy in him too? She did not believe that Dongfang Tianfeng would lose her chastity. Then, the only reason why Dongfang Tianfeng stopped her was to see through Su Yu's demonic energy. Others might not be aware, but how could Han Fei not know that Su Yu's demonic energy was the purest real demon energy in the world? It came from the extraterrestrial demons. That level of devil chi was twice as pure as the purest devil chi that humans could cultivate. For the same amount of demonic energy, the real demon energy was twice as powerful as a human's demonic energy. For an expert of Han Fei's level, the demonic energy was twice as powerful, and her overall strength was increased by at least 20%. At her level, even 5% was worth risking her life for, let alone 20%. Feng Er said that he occupied my person, so of course I have to do my best to protect his safety, Dongfang Tianfeng said matter-of-factly. Han Fei stared at Dongfang Tianfeng indifferently. Fine, I'd like to see how much you've improved in the past 4 years. Dongfang Tianfeng patted the colorful pocket on her waist with a smile and turned to look at Su Yu. You said you'd be responsible for me. Don't you forget it. Only Su Yu, and she knew what being responsible meant. Do you care about the book yardmaster that much? Su Yu asked. Yes, I need her honey of 100 flowers. Dongfang Tianfeng stated her intention. Su Yu did not believe a word of it. Although the honey of 100 flowers was precious, it was not unobtainable in the outside world. With this woman's high status, how difficult could it be to find 1 or 2 drops of something equal to the honey of 100 flowers? She must have been hiding a secret that she had not revealed. And that secret was with the flower yardmaster. I'm going to have to disappoint you, Su Yu said placidly. Dongfang Tianfeng was still smiling. That's no good. If you make Feng Er unhappy, I'll join forces with Sister Fei Er to deal with you. Su Yu shrugged. It doesn't matter. The so-called Starry Sky elites couldn't be stronger than Xue Di and the 5 Golden Light Guards, could they? Killing one was killing, but what difference did killing 2 make? For some unknown reason, Dongfang Tianfeng stared into Su Yu's eyes and suddenly felt a chill in her heart. That kind of feeling could only be experienced when facing the top all creation's old monsters. A sense of panic, as if her fate was being decided by someone else, rippled. I'm just kidding. Why are you so serious? Dongfang Tianfeng turned around and laughed. Her body retreated slowly until she reached the edge of the battlefield. She looked at Han Fei with a smile. Feng Er, change your mind. What Sister Fei Er wants to do has nothing to do with me. You could do whatever you want. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? Why was Dongfang Tianfeng retreating at the last minute? Han Fei frowned, suspicion flickering in her eyes. Was she planning to take advantage of the situation? Could it be that the kid before her could cause her any trouble? However, this absurd thought only flashed past his mind. How could a mere 9th-grade fairy be able to shake a starry sky elite like her? Hand over the source of the demonic energy, and I won't take your things for free. Han Fei floated in the void and looked down at Su Yu. If I'm satisfied, I can give you some pointers in your training. Such arrogant words came out of Han Fei's mouth, but it seemed like a matter of course. Envious gazes were intertwined on Su Yu. Even the students of the inner sanctum of the Red Blood Palace looked envious. What an honor it was to be instructed by a starry sky elite. I already have a master, so you don't have to worry about giving me pointers, Miss Han. Su Yu refused without hesitation. Han Fei pondered for a moment and seemed to have made up her mind. All right, I have 9 great demon guards, but now I'm short of 1. You'll do. Upon hearing that, gasps of surprise filled the entire place. What? Demon guards? They are Han Fei's trusted Imperial guards, enjoying the treatment of the 10 great demon elders of the supreme heavenly demon faction. They have endless resources, and they can listen to Han Fei's personal guidance at any time. The 4 great Starry Sky elites each had their own Imperial guards. It was rumored that every Imperial guard was a pinnacle genius second only to the Starry Sky elites. Among the Imperial guards, there was no lack of experts from their respective regions, such as Gu Taishu, the number one genius expert of the blessed and heavenly lands, and by Ling Tian, the number one genius expert of the heavenly knife region. To be able to become an imperial guard of the four great starry sky elites was almost the pinnacle of one's life. Unfortunately, the conditions to become an imperial guard were extremely stringent. With the standards of the four great starry sky elites, ordinary people were beneath their notice. For an ordinary almighty like Su Yu to become an imperial guard of the starry sky elites, it was tantamount to reaching the heavens in a single bound. Pairs of envious eyes seemed to want to pierce through Su Yu a million times over. How lucky! Tian Yu was not without jealousy, but at the same time, she was a little fearful. The hatred on Qian Feng's face faded away, replaced by a little reverence. Even Bai Ling Tian and Gu Taishu frowned at the same time, feeling a little troubled. The imperial guards of the once-in-a-thousand-years demonic lady had an extraordinary status. In the entire continent, even the all-creation's old monsters might not dare to provoke them. Is being an imperial guard that great? A discordant voice broke the shock of the entire place. Looking in the direction of the voice, the jaws of all the challengers dropped. The one who had spoken was none other than Su Yuxian, who had reached the heavens in a single bound in their eyes. Han Fei was greatly surprised as well. If it had been people like Gu Taishu and Bai Ling Tian who had declined, she could have understood it. Both of them had the potential to become the four great starry sky elites. But where did Su Yu's confidence come from? Are you sure you understand the significance of being a demon guard? Han Fei asked. Su Yu sneered. I'm sure. I'm willing to be beneath others and give up on the dream of pursuing the strong. Becoming a demon guard meant submitting to Han Fei not only in terms of status, but also in spirit. A man who lowered his head would eventually rise again. Once his heart was lowered, he would never be able to surpass it. Han Fei's eyes were filled with curiosity. She couldn't help but size Su Yu up again, a sense of novelty welling up in her heart. She had seen many people who boasted of their strength of character, but that was only in the face of temptation that wasn't enough to move them. Once there was a temptation that moved them enough, the so-called strength of character would crumble and disintegrate. There was almost no one who truly possessed a sense of pride and was unafraid of power. However, Su Yu gave Han Fei a refreshing feeling. People with self-respect would be respected even by their enemies. A rarely seen, firm, martial heart. Very good. I like it. Han Fei's indifferent face revealed a rare, sincere smile of approval. Gu Taishu, who had been with her for so many days, had never seen such a smile before. It's a pity that your strength hasn't reached my ideal level. Otherwise, the path of martial arts might be less lonely. Han Fei sighed regretfully. When she looked at Su Yu again, her gaze was much gentler. It's a pity that you died here. I won't kill you today, but the energy of the real demon is very important to me and the supreme heavenly demon faction. If you come around one day, you can come to the supreme heavenly demon faction and exchange it for what you want. Swish. At the same time, Han Fei removed a black token from her waist. A whiff of Han Fei's scent was attached to it, and Han Fei's name was also carved on it. This is my identity token. Keep it well. When you come to the supreme heavenly demon faction in the future, you can use this to look for me. Su Yu grabbed the token and sighed inwardly. Dongfang Tianfeng, who seemed innocent and kind like a girl next door, was full of schemes. On the other hand, Han Fei, who seemed cold and heartless like a demoness, had kindness in her heart. I'll think about it. Su Yu nodded and put it away. Seeing that Su Yu was facing a great catastrophe, not only did he not infuriate Han Fei, but he was even appreciated instead. He was filled with mixed feelings. Besides, with Han Fei around, who would dare to make things difficult for Su Yu and the Red Blood Palace in public? Even the Heavenly Knife region would have to swallow their pride and let it go. If that's the case, we'll meet again. Han Fei smiled and turned to leave. However, right at that moment, a great expanse of green light appeared in the depths of the sky. The green light was spiraling and shrouded rapidly from afar. Along the way, mountains were uprooted, frightening the challengers stationed in the mountains and causing them to flee in terror. The green light gradually approached, dyeing the boundless land a gloomy green. Glancing at the people around him, everyone's faces were covered in green, like green-faced ghosts. It was indescribably creepy. What the F Astros CK? Is this a horror film? Suyu muttered to himself. Staring at the green light storm, Suyu sensed the presence of a suffocating aura. The aura didn't feel like that of a human, but of a non-human living being. Han Fei, Dongfang Tianfeng, Gu Taishu, Bai Ling Tian, and the others all sensed the ominous presence in the green storm one after another. Something incredible is coming. Bai Ling Tian restrained his faint smile, and his emerald pupils shone slowly. The meridians on the surface of Gu Taishu's body flowed at an abnormal speed. It's an ancient real spirit. As a body of 9 spirits, he was most sensitive to real spirits. The fire phoenix beneath Dongfang Tianfeng's feet shuddered violently. Its eyes were filled with instinctive fear, as if it had encountered a superior living being among the demonic species. No matter how Dongfang Tianfeng comforted it was of no avail. Han Fei glanced at it and said dispassionately, "A remnant soul." It was at the level of a mortal fairy when it was alive. A remnant soul of an ancient real spirit at the level of a mortal fairy. Chapter 10:13. He, the main character, has arrived. Suyu chuckled. Even though he was far away, he could still sense that he had been targeted by the creature in the center of the storm. At the same time, the hidden sense of danger was exceptionally real. The danger that had locked onto him since he left the garden had finally arrived. "You came at the right time," Suyu said with a smile. The ice around Bing Wuxin, who had isolated the outside world with her ice, disappeared, and she came to Suyu's side. She furrowed her brows and said, "The trouble you have caused is enough to encircle the entire Juzhou continent." He had provoked the Heavenly Knife region first, then Han Fei, and finally a remnant soul with a powerful background had appeared. So you felt wronged. How can you be so sure that it's me? Perhaps the victim mistook me for someone else? Buzz buzz, the great earthquake rumbled, and the wretched green world became gloomy. Amidst the whistling of the sinister wind, a horrifying voice was heard. "Is the supreme heavenly demon sect here?" When Suyu heard that, he laughed. "Like I said, a bright and beautiful young man like me who is focused on doing good deeds is loved by everyone. Why would I have so many enemies?" Bing Wuxin was so infuriated that she laughed. Suyu's fighting prowess in the Red Blood Palace was off the charts. The supreme heavenly demon sect? Han Fei frowned slightly. "Looking for me? You're a disciple of the supreme heavenly demon sect. Fine, hand over Su Yuxian from your sect, and I'll spare your life." The remnant soul in the eye of the storm continued. Upon hearing this, Bing Wuxin couldn't help but smile faintly and say, "Looks like a handsome young man like you isn't lovable enough. Only a mediocre person would not be envied by others." Su Yu snorted. His tone was as if he was saying that he had a low level of awareness. Bing Wuxin glanced at him and became slightly more serious. "Who did you offend? He seems to have a powerful background. If you ask me, who should I ask?" Su Yu expressed his innocence and bewilderment. "Humph, you're the one who caused this trouble, and you don't even know who it is?" Bing Wuxin rolled her eyes. Su Yu shrugged. "That's why I said you should ask his mother." "How will my mother know?" Su Yuxian. Many pairs of eyes turned to look at Su Yu, as if they were lightning bolts. Su Yu couldn't help but mutter, "Will I die if I don't look?" A bunch of curious babies in human form. Shouldn't you say that people are afraid of fame, while pigs are afraid of getting fat? Bing Wuxin gloated. Su Yu glared at her. She could still laugh at such a time. "Do we still want to be friends?" "It's you?" The green tempest gradually disappeared. Suddenly, the ground shook violently with a dong sound. A cyan bronze bull, as tall as a human, took a step forward. Its huge hooves stomped on the ground, causing the earth to shake. "It's me. Why? Did you come from the underworld to look for your relatives?" Su Yu snorted. The bronze bull exuded an unparalleled majesty. "I am the Heavenly Works Divine Bull, not an evil ghost of the Yellow Springs. Do I look like a stupid cow to you? I am the Heavenly Works Divine Ox, Fae. The bronze ox repeated. I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. If you have any peerless divine skills that you want to pass on to your descendants, even if you die with regrets, I could do good deeds and help you pass it down. I am the Heavenly Works Divine Bull. The green copper bull was a little unhappy. Or perhaps you have some treasures that you have forgotten to pass on to your descendants. You can tell me first. In keeping with the noble tradition, I will never take the treasures for myself. The green copper bull's entire body flickered with green light as it roared. Damn it! Can you let me finish what I want to say? Hearing that the bronze bull was so angry that he cursed, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Damn it! Su Yu's eloquence must be at the fairy level. A remnant soul of a mortal fairy was so angry that it cursed. Fine, just spit it out. Su Yu was reasonable and waved his hand. Puff! The bronze bull panted heavily through its nostrils and stared at Su Yu fiercely. Obviously, it was very angry. You brat, you're so rude. Considering my status, your master has to address me as a senior when he sees me. The bronze bull said angrily. Su Yu nodded. Are you looking for me? Or are you looking for my teacher? You. Fine, I don't want to waste my breath on this little kid. You killed the trainees of the Heavens Craftsman faction. As the guardian of the Heavens Craftsman faction, you have to pay the price for your behavior. The green bronze bull snorted. Su Yu was surprised. So, it's the bunch of idiots from the Heavens Craftsman faction. Not only did he fail, he even had the cheek to seek revenge on the guardian. You beat the young one, and the old one runs away. The bronze bull was stunned for a moment. Speak clearly. What do you mean by being beaten up? Don't you dare slander the Heavens Craftsman faction. Pfft. Is there a need to slander me? Su Yu simply told the story of his encounter with the Heavens Craftsman faction. He rescued their eldest senior brother from Dongfang Tianfeng, but Yu Liang intended to bite the hand that fed him. Later, the eldest senior brother played along and set up a trap to lure Su Yu out of the flower yardmaster. Dongfang Tianfeng chimed in. Yes, the brothers of the Heavens Craftsman faction are not good people. When they saw me alone, they tried to trick me into blowing their flute with a lollipop. Yes, but I don't know anything about music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. When I wanted to leave, they stopped me and I beat them to death. They're definitely a group of bad guys. How dare they force me to blow my flute? How strange. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. The people of the Heavens Craftsman faction did not recognize Dongfang Tianfeng and asked her to blow their flute. What an elegant act of art. TSK. It's no wonder. There are more men than women in the Heavens Craftsman faction, and the ratio of men to women is as high as 100 to 1. The group of students who have been immersed in mechanisms and puppets all year round have become dead otakus. When they finally came down the mountain and met a beautiful woman, they were overcome with lust and passion. It's completely reasonable that they turned into beasts. Yes, I've long heard that the students of the Heavens Craftsman faction are thirsty, but I didn't expect it to be all fake. How is this thirsty? It's clearly a walking, self-propelled gun. They hit flying objects whenever they see them. If it was only Su Yu's words, the bronze bull would never have believed the rumors. What a joke. How could the 10,000-year reputation of the Heavens Craftsman faction be tarnished by you alone? However, with Dongfang Tianfeng around, there was a lot of discussion going on. As the saying goes, 3 people make a tiger. The bronze bull, who prided itself on its dignity, was a little dumbfounded. It had only heard the challengers of the faction cursing Su Yu for being shameless and setting them up. Who would have thought that they were the ones who were unjust in the first place? If it made things difficult for Su Yu, it would only tarnish the reputation of the Heavens Craftsman faction and hurt the relationship between them and the supreme Heavenly Demon faction. This was going to be difficult to handle. Hey, cow-headed man, after all that talk, who the hell are you? What's your relationship with a bunch of scumbags in the Heavens Craftsman faction who commit all kinds of crimes, snitch experts, and complain first? Don't tell me you're in cahoots with them? So you looked at him disdainfully. The bronze bull was taken aback. Me? I'm the Heavens Craftsman. Ahem. I'm actually just a bystander. So, You have nothing to do with the Heaven's Craftsman faction. Suyu asked with a frown. The cyan bronze bull said righteously, Of course. How glorious is this noble one? How can I be associated with such vile people? I don't know them at all. Suyu snorted. Then why the hell did you come here to flaunt your prowess? Haha, I'm just here to lighten the mood by watching the young talents fight each other, the bronze bull said with a chuckle, looking at the wretched green all around him, which looked like a scene from a horror film. Suyu said angrily, Lighten my *s. Hurry up and turn off the lighting effects. You've scared the ghosts away. The bronze bull was speechless. Chapter 10:14. Oh, okay. The cyan bronze bull's body flickered with cyan light, and the cyan light in the surroundings dissipated. The green copper bull retreated awkwardly. Since there's nothing else for me to do, I'll take my leave. I won't disturb you heroes from exchanging life experiences. Wait. All of a sudden, Han Fei called out to him. Wisps of chilliness shot out from her cold eyes. The green copper bull looked at Han Fei from afar. There was a hint of hidden fear in its eyes. What is it? Han Fei pointed at Suyu. You mean Su Yuxian of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction? The cyan copper bull was taken aback. Yes, his love for me. Oh, tell the bunch of scumbags who commit all sorts of crimes, snitches, and the ones who complain first that they're disciples of the Supreme Heavenly Demon sect. Han Fei squinted her eyes and looked at Suyu with a faint smile. You're using the name of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction. Su Yuxian, I need an explanation from you. The disciples of the Red Blood Palace impersonating the disciples of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction to fight with the disciples of the other factions was a big deal. If he said it was a small matter, if he did not pursue the matter, the big matter would be reduced to a small matter, and the matter would be resolved into nothingness. Speaking of which, if the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction were to send envoys to question them, the Red Blood Palace wouldn't be able to escape responsibility. Suyu, the main culprit, naturally wouldn't be able to escape responsibility either. A round of punishment was inevitable. As for Mo Tianxian, she was like a wolf and a tiger, waiting to get hold of Suyu's weakness. Just thinking about it made Suyu unhappy. Wait a minute. When did I tell those idiots that I'm a disciple of the Supreme Heavenly Demon sect? They just thought they were clever. When they saw me perform a set of demonic techniques, they knelt down and worshipped me as the elite students of the Supreme Heavenly Demon faction, borrowing the Heavenly Demon faction's name all the way. I never admitted it myself, so you would never admit it. However, Han Fei still had something on Suyu and refused to let go. Although you didn't admit it, you didn't deny it either. This isn't something you can escape from just by playing with words. Indeed, Suyu is suspected of deliberately leading the way. The Supreme Heavenly Demon faction had reason to seek out the Red Blood Palace. Then what do you want? Tell me. Suyu said, if it's about the secret source of the demonic energy, then forget it. I believe the faction would rather be blamed by you than let you get the demonic energy easily. A hint of regret appeared on Han Fei's forehead. She thought to herself, this person is really not easy to fool. I thought I could get the secret by intimidating him. I'm not interested in reporting a little expert for the time being. However, if I can get a favor from you, it should not be a problem, right? Han Fei asked. Suyu raised his brows. What do you want me to do for you? Han Fei smiled sweetly. I haven't decided yet, but it must be within your ability. After giving it some thought, Suyu asked, do I have a choice? I'm satisfied. Han Fei smiled and landed in front of the Marshal Tower. She did not return to the mountain. I'm leaving as well. Everyone, farewell. The cyan bronze bull flew away in a flash of green light. Hundreds of miles away, the bronze bull muttered to itself, F***CK. Are the challengers this time going to defy the natural order? Forget about the body of 9 spirits. There's also the inheritor of the emerald eyes and flowery pupils. Forget about that. What's up with that black-bellied little girl? Why does she carry the personal artifacts of the 2 old monsters of the great Oriental family with her? Damn it, that's a top-grade fairy artifact. Just a casual move, and I'm going to follow her. And that little beauty in the black dress. What's up with the pure yang demonic energy in her body? Is that old thing of the supreme heavenly demon faction muddle-headed? How could he instill such a dangerous, time bomb-like thing into this little girl's body? It's fine if it's them, but what the F***CK is going on with that guy called Su Yuxian? He's the most F***king terrifying guy. What's up with the several divine auras on him? Is he trying to F***king kill me? Fortunately, I'm quick-witted and play dumb. Damn it, I almost fell in the monster pit for the sake of those idiots. And they're all F***king monsters. I'm scared to death. No, I'm going to take a stroll to calm down, the bronze bull said, trembling. In the martial tower, Suyu muttered to himself. He thought he'd been targeted by an unusually powerful creature and was in grave danger, but it had passed just like that. It was beyond his expectations. Composing himself, Suyu looked back at the heavenly knife region and narrowed his eyes. Now that the situation had developed to this point, he believed there was no need to continue fighting. Even if Han Fei and Dongfang Tianfeng didn't lend a hand to the Red Blood Palace, they wouldn't sit idly by and watch Suyu get injured or killed. It could be said that the Red Blood Palace was already in an invincible position. The martial tower is about to open, and there's no need for us to continue fighting. Why don't we rest here and wait for the martial tower to open before entering to train? Bai Ling Tian smiled, but he was talking to Suyu instead of Bing Wuxin, who seemed to be the leader. Bing Wuxin and the people of the Red Blood Palace nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of relief. At least they'd escaped the calamity. Why can you fight whenever you want and stop whenever you don't? However, someone wasn't willing to give up. Bai Ling Tian was still smiling. What do you mean, Brother Su? What do I mean? Of course I mean to fight until both of us are unwilling to fight anymore. If it's beneficial to the Heavenly Knife region, you keep fighting, and if it's disadvantageous, you call a truce. How can there be such a good thing in the world? So you sneered. Upon hearing that, the faces of the people of the Red Blood Palace changed. You could die if you want to, but why drag us down with you? The group of students smiled bitterly. Qian Feng was annoyed. Su, you've caused more than half of the Heavenly Knife region to die. We didn't hold it against you, but you won't let it go. Su Yu said, that's because you're stupid. What does it have to do with me? Whether we call a truce or not depends on the Red Blood Palace. Don't push your luck. Qian Feng was infuriated. Su Yu snorted. So what if I push my luck? I'm already feeling sorry for you that I haven't pushed my luck. If you're unhappy, come out and let's fight one-on-one. Fight the 9th grade almighty Qian Feng alone? This sentence was a little shocking. Qian Feng's strength wasn't the strongest under the starry sky, but apart from Gu Taishu and Bai Ling Tian, there weren't many who could fight him to a draw, let alone defeat him. Could this Su Yuxian have such powerful strength? Qian Feng was furious. Fine, I'll fight you. However, as he stepped forward, he was blocked by a force. Eldest senior brother, why won't you let me fight? Qian Feng asked. Bai Ling Tian stared at Su Yuxian and said placidly, now is not the time to fight. Don't fall into his trap. Su Yu's strength was Bai Ling Tian's biggest concern. He was a dark horse, a complete dark horse. Before he defeated Tang Ling with a single move, no one paid much attention to him. Therefore, there was no information about him. Where his bottom line was completely unpredictable. Qian Feng and Su Yu fought, and it was hard to tell who would win. The martial tower was about to open. The Red Blood Palace had lost Su Yuxian and more than 40 students, so their advantage in numbers was unshakable. However, the Heavenly Knife region had lost a vanguard, and there were only 3 people left. The Red Blood Palace could fight, but the Heavenly Knife region couldn't. Understanding the crux of the matter, Qian Feng clenched his fists in anger. We were careless and fell into Su Yuxian's trap. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a passive position. Bai Ling Tian comforted him. Don't worry, we have another team that's gathering. They're not in this region for the time being. The Heavenly Knife region was huge, and it was backed by the Central Prefecture. How could they only have so few geniuses? Theoretically, they should have far more geniuses than the blessed and heavenly lands could produce. Looking at Su Yu, Bai Ling Tian smiled. Then, what do you want in exchange for a truce? Su Yu held up 2 fingers without hesitation. It's simple, 2 requests. First, give me a copy of the contents of Mo Dao's Book of Een. Second, Tianyu. Chapter 10:15. By Ling Tian muttered, Mo Dao's Book of Een is broad and profound. If Brother Su is willing to comprehend it together, I'm more than happy to do so. I can give you a copy of the contents. However, Brother Su is making things difficult for me with the second condition. Tianyu belongs to the Heavenly Knife region. Handing her over to you would damage the reputation of the Heavenly Knife region. I can't make the decision on this matter. So you sneered coldly. Why would I want her? The Red Blood Palace never recycles the trash of a defeated opponent. So if you are willing to treat it as a treasure, we are happy to see it happen. Tianyu was embarrassed and annoyed. She glared at Su Yu fiercely. Oh, then what do you want from Tianyu? Bai Ling Tian asked. Su Yu stared at Tianyu and said slowly, I just want to ask her a question, and I hope she will answer it truthfully. Problem? Bai Ling Tian pondered for a moment. Then he nodded slightly. Tianyu, if you can answer me, just answer me. Tianyu was extremely displeased. Ask away. The question is Tian Rinyao all right? Disappointment and frustration appeared in Su Yu's eyes. He was also one of the Demon Mountain's 5 great demons, but he was the only one whose whereabouts were unknown. Tianyu was stunned and hesitated for a while. We're not familiar with each other. Su Yu nodded. Yes, I'm done. Bai Ling Tian looked at Tianyu with slight confusion and said, We can rest now and wait for the opening of the Martial Tower. Bai Ling Tian raised his hand and tossed a jade pendant with the Book of Een imprinted on it over. I want to check it against the original book. So you shook his sleeves and blocked the jade pendant. Bai Ling Tian grabbed the jade pendant and smiled. He crushed the jade pendant and made a new copy. Obviously, the one just now wasn't complete. It was only after Su Yu confirmed that the new jade pendant was exactly the same as the one in the original book that he gave up and leaned against the tower with the Red Blood Palace's people. Hey, why did you ask Tianyu about transvestites? Bing Wuxin asked curiously. Su Yu leaned against the wall of the Martial Tower. It was just some speculation, but now it's confirmed. What is it? Bing Wuxin stared fixedly at Su Yu's eyes. Su Yu replied earnestly, I won't tell you. Die! A fist hammered Su Yu's arm. Crack! Damn woman, you're too heavy-handed. You've broken his bones. F*CKU. The Martial Pagoda is opening. The strange noise attracted the trial takers from all directions, and they surged out from the campsites on the mountains. With a rough count, there were at least 10,000 people. Half of the trial takers were gathered here. In other words, there were no less than 20,000 trial takers. Geniuses are as common as dogs. So you sighed. Who are you calling a dog? Bing Wuxin glared at him in displeasure. Woof! A dog barked just in time. Looking back, he saw a black dog squatting at the entrance of the Martial Tower. Whose leash is broken? Su Yu looked around. Hee. Who dares to put a chain on your uncle dog? Unexpectedly, a sarcastic sound came out of the dog's mouth. Tisk, speaking human language? This isn't something new. What's new is that a dog that has lost its owner doesn't have a kind-hearted person to bring it home when it's lost. I'm not talented, but I do a good deed every day, and I hope to bring warmth to the world, Su Yu said. As he reached out to grab the black dog, he suddenly thought of a delicacy in the world. 3 rolls of dog meat. Even the immortals could not stand steadily. The black dog bared its teeth. War my ass. You're thinking of dog meat, aren't you? Am I right? Su Yu's face was solemn. You've misunderstood. I'm actually a vegetarian. Get lost. The black dog snarled and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Su Yuxian, who are you talking to? Bing Wuxin squeezed her way through the crowd. Su Yu shrugged. A lost puppy. I'm guiding it to find the path of light. A black dog? Bing Wuxin was confused. Shaking her head, she said, The Martial Tower is about to open. Don't get distracted. Later, we'll take advantage of the crowd and try our best to climb up. So you didn't know much about the Martial Tower. How do we occupy it? Bing Wuxin sighed helplessly. I forgot that you've just arrived and aren't familiar with the environment of the Martial Tower. They had arrived first and more or less learned some details about the Martial Tower from the trial takers of other domains. There are 3 incredible places in the Martial Tower. First, there are 100 stories in total, and each story has a story master. The story master is extremely powerful. Defeating the story master will earn corresponding points, which can be used to draw rewards from the crystals left behind after the story master's death. Second, after entering, it will be single-person mode. Third, time slows down in the tower. For the first 30 stories, time is 30% slower than the outside world. For the middle 30 stories, time is 60% slower than the outside world. For the last 30 stories, time is 100% slower than the outside world. For the last 10 stories, each story is twice as slow as the previous one. Therefore, our body techniques are severely restricted, and our strength is reduced sharply in the tower. So you clicked his tongue in wonder when he heard that. The first two sounded novel, but the last one was shocking. Inside the martial tower, there was the power of time. This was the first time he had encountered a treasure with the power of time apart from himself. All right, tell me more about it. Bing Wuxin sighed. Although she was impatient, she explained patiently. When you defeat the story master will drop crystals. The crystals are treasures designed by the mortal fairies in the past. They are similar to space rings and contain many treasures. The value of the treasures and the crystals on each story is proportional to the number of stories. The higher the level, the higher the grade of the treasures in the crystals. Defeating a story will earn you points for the corresponding story, and the points for the corresponding story can be used to open the crystals of the corresponding story. In that case, we should accumulate points to open the crystals of the 100th story? So you asked. Bing Wuxin rolled her eyes at him. Dream on. Throughout the ages, the number of challengers who have passed the 100th story can be counted on one hand. All of them eventually became strong men like the Jiuzhou King. 4 Starry Sky elites like Han Fei. The 90th story is the limit. Therefore, obtaining the crystals of the 100th story was unrealistic. However, you're right about one thing. We need to accumulate points. The crystals of the lower story masters are of little use to us, so we don't have to waste points. We need to accumulate all the points, and when the martial tower is about to close, we'll gather again. Everyone will take out the high-grade crystals that you've obtained and open them together. That way, we can make the most of our points. For example, if someone had only made it to the 10th story and had a total of 55 points, he could open the crystals of the 55th story once according to his points. But if someone couldn't make it to the 55th story, what should they do? At that time, if a strong man from the same faction made it to the 70th story, the crystals of the 55th story would be extra, and they could be given to him. It would be the best of both worlds. I see. May I know how long the martial tower is open for? So you asked. Bing Wuxin said, according to the past records, it's only open for 10 days at a time. If all the levels are cleared within 10 days, can I challenge them again? So you suddenly thought of something. Bing Wuxin was dumbfounded by the question. You can think of something like that. But theoretically, it should be possible. But in terms of time, the consumption of the challengers and so on, you don't have to think too much about it. Not even the previous prefecture kings have done it.